There you go. Bypass. That's how it works. All right. Well, is Maggot here?
He was grabbing some food. He'll be back with us in just a second. Are we live on air right now?
Yeah, we start a lot of shows in this babbling sort of "Are we on yet?" kind of way. I've noticed
we
that.
do. That's what intro music that you can just play it. Pardon?
That's why people love us. It's that and my radio silence. That's the big part, the radio silence thing. But they also love the babbling.
It's your radio silence.
It gets you right between the eyes. They love that.
Of course we do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second week of our live broadcast here on American Freeman on the Radio Freeman Network. We're very glad to have you with us today. Glad to have you out there in the world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. The weather's nice where you are. My name is Don. I am your host, Freeman on the Land. I am joined as always today by the President of the Americas Chapter, Mr. Evstratios Konstantin.
Try the last name. Come on.
Moriarty.
Nope.
How close am I?
One more try.
No. I'm gonna slaughter it even worse than I kind of did.
Okay. And then we're redialing Maggot. He's in England. It's really hard to stay connected. England, they have some really bad uploading. If you think America's bad, man, go to England and get the internet.
And,
there we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
And
We're actually joined by Maggot today, and
hopefully we'll be able to keep everyone online and occupied.
we'll just keep redialing.
Sounds like an absolute plan. For those of you who are new out there listening for the first time, we are part of the World Freeman Society. You can find that at www.worldfreemansociety.org. You'll find out all kinds of wonderful information about reclaiming your sovereignty, about common law and natural law versus statute or commercial law. In fact, we're here to try and help educate you on some questions you might have and help point you in the right direction. We will hopefully soon be having archives of our show up for your availability, and we, as always, want to hear from you. You can reach us to email us questions. You can join us in the forum boards. You can follow my weekly and daily blog there at World Freeman. And if you are on Skype, you can call us and chime in with your questions, your answers, your retorts, or just to tell us how wonderful we all are. You can reach us at Keep Truth Free on Skype. So, anyone have anything fascinating happened with them over the weekend that struck their fancy as being important to our discussions?
We did a show on Sunday, it was a conversation that was accidentally recorded and it became a show, so I don't know if we're going to put that up. That's one thing.
Who's we?
Lenny and I, Lenny called me up Sunday morning and just I think it got to 300 minutes, 315 minutes on it.
Well, that can happen, especially with Lenny. I know I will catch myself and we'll sit and wind up talking for about 2 hours outside of
the we had Iconoclast Radio on the call as well.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, it might have been one or two other people.
Sort of heard of Iconoclast show on Friday evening, and
I'm trying to
I did want to share something with you guys that I did come across. This is my local paper, actually, here in Michigan, and it's a local opinion piece actually written by the local paper itself. And I'll just read the title to you. It says, "Free Cell Phones, Hello, Nanny State." And it's all about how more than 835,000 Michigan households qualify for a free Sprint telephone through the Assurance Wireless program. So don't bother to give the poor people the food, the education they need. Don't bother to give them their rights or anything, but make sure you put cell phones in their hands so that we can constantly keep track of them. Thoughts or comments on that? I have no idea what Lenny's doing in the background there. He must be on another call screening somebody in or trying to connect with somebody. But I found it amazing that even in my small little town, such as it is, has come to the conclusion that some of these corporate government policies being pushed through nonprofit agencies really amount to nothing more than a control element on society. Do you guys have a welfare cell phone program over there in the UK, Maggot?
A welfare cell phone? No, not really. I haven't heard of one. I know they have them in Africa for some reason. They got like millions of cell phones. They flog over there for nothing. But no, we have to pay like full rate for the phones. It's like unless you're going to steal them, you have to pay about £100 or something. But that changes all the time actually. So maybe it's more like a tenner now. That's mainly because of pressure, because everybody's found out about how much they're selling them for in Africa, which is peanuts. I think they just give them away. They probably just have like a wheelbarrow and just hand them out.
Well, they've been trying to run a program here for the last couple of years, and I guess it's starting to pick up enough steam that if you qualify under certain programs, let me see if I can find it here. The private non-profit Universal Service Administrative Company actually works on taking care of all the administrative duties for it. But what it is free cell phones for low-income people and an expansion of a national effort to boost access to telecommunications. And this is being coupled with the program of trying to outfit every student with a personal laptop computer. And while I think on some level that's a good idea to ensure that everyone has access to the newer technology so they can access this information, I think it creates a rather significant problem. Do your schools over there in the UK let or give laptops to their students?
I know there's special offers and like you can exchange shopping tokens for laptops, but I don't think they're actually giving them away for free. I don't know. I don't think the economy over here is as bad as it is in the US. I don't think they can get away with flogging things so cheap and just basically giving them away. It's all a bit dodgy, really. I mean, it's why they're so keen to have this equipment passed on to people. The average person doesn't really even need a laptop, you know? Right. Really. They go to work, come back, watch the TV, have some food, go to bed, go to work. Repeat until retirement or death. There's people who aren't used to paying for mobile phones, but a lot of them are stolen over here, obviously. So how come get them cheaper?
Sure. Well, and I may have misrepresented myself when I said giving them away for free. What they do is the school buys the laptops, and then they issue them to students in much the same way that they issue you your school books when you're in school and middle school and high school over here. So that it's actually something that you are supposed to utilize for the purpose of your schoolwork, but at the same time, they advocate parents to pay the insurance fees on them to then take the laptops home with them. Of course, if the parents don't pay the insurance cost, the school isn't going to relinquish direct control over them, because God forbid something happened to the computer while it's in the student's hands. All right, we've gone to a gift. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry about that slight interruption in your coverage here today. We apologize. We are experiencing technical difficulties. We do appreciate the fact that you're bearing with us. This is a new radio station, and we are still working on making sure that we have continuous live coverage for you during the 1 to 4 hour, but we apologize. Do we have
I just checked online. Yeah, I'm back. I just checked online. We got a free laptop scheme for low-income UK families officially unveiled. That was like in 11th January 2010. So yeah, we do have the same credit scheme. You know, for losers who want to get their brains melted by the screen.
Exactly.
I see. I didn't really check on it because I wasn't really interested in it. It's like, a new level of brainwashing for the kids. Ooh, wonderful.
Right, exactly. Well, and I don't have kids myself, so I'm not actively going out and searching for it. But it's all over the place. It's constant on television. It's constant even on the radio. I realize that there are an awful lot of people out there who might not spend any time paying any attention to what's considered quote end quote mainstream media, but I always think it's a good idea to keep one ear to the wall of your enemies so that you know what they're planning next. And it's always good to know what kind of brainwashing techniques they're using on people.
They're giving it away to 270,000 families. So yeah, it's bizarre because why are you giving it to people who are at the lowest end of the rung because they already failed? I don't get it. I thought we were supposed to be entering a caste system, in which case you just keep them down the base. But I think it's like to give them like the idea that they've got hope or something. Maybe it's false hope. I mean, people apparently need hope all the time and they need motivation in order to do things. And so perhaps it's like to make them think that they're on the up and up and they're going to be like Mr. Business. Which is a joke in itself, that word. But sort of like a yuppie, and they think they've got a future when it's really just more of like put your nose to the grindstone, just keep working. Peasants. Yeah.
Well, and I have some major issues with that. But go ahead.
Yeah. It just seems really bizarre though that they do that. I don't really get it. It's sort of like communism, isn't it, almost? You know, give everybody a computer, everybody free education, everybody free healthcare.
I live in hell. I blew up the show again.
Yeah. Are we on air right now?
Oh, you've been talking. I haven't.
Oh, well, that's good. Fantastic. Yeah. As long as we're still on air, Again, we apologize, folks. Thanks for being with us.
Keep going, because I actually have a story here about that same thing from Macworld magazine.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to make a couple quick points, if I could, before we get to that. They have the reason I ask is because here in the U.S. they have been hammering at home that we need to ensure that our kids all have access to the internet. They all have to have access to the internet, and then they turn around and start whining and complaining about how the internet is ruining our kids and letting them become bigger bullies because it creates anonymity. And I have nieces of mine who are, third grade who already know how to put together a whole report, include clip art, and play online video games, and are more web savvy and more computer savvy than most of the people my age. And it seems like such an indoctrination to get them into a point of passivity.
I guess that's what it is. Yeah, it's just difficult to see what they're trying to do with society to have everybody so computer literate. I mean, shouldn't you just be getting on with your life really and not, wanting to be the next like Hollywood movie producer sort of thing, with like 3D graphics and stuff whizzing around. It's it kind of like gets rid of the sort of people who are self-motivated. All the people who sort of like, got there. I don't know. Maybe that's a myth in itself. I don't particularly believe that one either. That people, like Rich Branson and stuff, just like came out of nowhere.
Well, you want to see what the reason is?
What themselves up?
According to a lawsuit filed in Pennsylvania, a vice principal in the Lower Merion School District accused a student of using illicit drugs at home. When the student's parents asked for evidence, the vice principal said that he had pictures from the camera on the student's laptop. The school district has issued MacBooks to 2,300 of its students. It also installed security software on all those Macs. The tracking software can be used to remotely monitor any user, which is what the school district allegedly did. Mm-hmm. Well, not allegedly, they were spying on these people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it says such monitoring could be illegal under federal and state laws. The FBI is investigating, so of course nothing will happen.
Right, exactly.
They'll get away with it.
So really, it's just another way of having us monitored. I get it. I get it. Because if they give
just like there's a great website about it's called Pacer PACIR.org. It's about parents against spying in bathrooms. They were selling the footage of the girls' soccer team showering in this one school district.
Very educational.
The principal's watching. So it's for pedophilia, and the elites and the social monarchs of the communist system here, the teachers and all that, use the technology to spy on the children while they're dressing and undressing. That's the key. And so, like the other girls' soccer team complained. They all ran out of there when they saw the camera in the shower. But in fact, they defended it and acted like that was perfectly acceptable. How dare you want to complain about that? Don't you want the children to be safe in the shower?
Well, and I think that traces itself back to my point in asking it, because I wanted to get to that exact story. This the whole idea of the nanny state, the whole idea of constant surveillance, the whole idea of safety is constantly touted as the reasoning behind why we have to give up all of these levels of liberties and subject our kids and especially ourselves to this level of just interference in our day-to-day lives. I came across something earlier today that made the statement that, well, we have to have this kind of a protection for ourselves because if we don't, people can hurt us.
We're going to hurt them.
Yeah. the same professional organisations that put out the stuff in the first place, all the laptops and stuff in the first place, usually end up being the major culprits of any sort of paedophilia and spying anyway, because they gain the most material and they just sell it on.
And where do you think all the disclosures of everybody's bank numbers and all that stuff, those come from the banks? Those are the invasions of privacy and all that stuff. That's them. The Visa had a chip put in some people's Visa cards, and of course it had no encryption at all. So you could sit there with a $15 thing from Radio Shack in the airport and get everybody's Visa card number, because that's how they keep us safe, as you know. No encryption, no nothing. It's also a real inducement for you to voluntarily pick that up. Yeah, it's great, huh?
Well, again, it's the whole concept of you create the crisis, you offer the solution, and then you have the control. If you create the Visa cards so that a vast majority of them are easily accessible to steal the information off of, and then you go ahead and allow that to happen, well, then you've created the problem, and then you offer the solution that, well, we just have to have tighter regulation. You have to have tighter control over your identity. Don't worry about it for yourself. And then you get all these companies out there that say, we can protect your identity for you.
Of course, they're former CIA who run those companies.
Right, exactly.
Ha 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 ha.
I don't think there's any such thing as a former CIA officer.
No, it's just profiteering.
Right, exactly. I think once you're in for life. It's like any of the societies. Once you're in for life, or you're gotten rid of.
Right.
And having working through this particular JFK book, they list in it all these different CIA operatives that worked on different anti-Cuba, anti-Castro organizations and things, that their involvement, if revealed as CIA agents, could have compromised information regarding the Castro assassination plots as well as the JFK assassination plot.
Hello.
And so instead of letting these individuals go ahead and live their lives and trusting that they keep their mouths shut, they just conveniently got rid of them and wound up covering them up. But no, it's this whole giving cell phones away to people who are too poor to be able to have a cell phone for themselves. I mean, why are you doing it? So that they can call them?
That's it. Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, carry on.
They're too poor to defend themselves, is what it is. And
right.
And so I suppose it's getting them used to handouts again, but people aren't used to that anyway.
And with that,
state benefits,
too poor to have their own choice.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They'll have to take this extra added security because we paid for it.
Yeah. Because it defeats the point of capitalism when you end up feeding all the underclass or whatever. The whole point of capitalism is like everybody's out to get each other and it's top dog. At the top, and it's a total pyramid system. So unless they want to admit what system we're actually in, which I doubt they ever will.
That she said they already failed. They're not failed, but it's not like they tried and no, they're kept down. You know what I mean? The underclass, as you call them, they're kept down. They're not. It's not because they weren't bright enough, or we don't have a merit-based society.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was just based on that, yeah, sure, but not if it's a world ruled by conspiracy.
Yeah.
They just weren't in the right club,
That's it.
Well, that's exactly what it is too. I mean, they didn't fail because when you take a look at, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the last time it was done 10 years ago here in the U.S., it'll be 2000. 35.9 million people live below the poverty line in America, including 12.9 million children. And that's out of the people that actually filled out the census. You keep going on for it. 3.5% of U.S. households experience hunger. Some people in these households frequently skip meals or eat too little. 9.6 million people, including 3 million children, live in these homes. And you start getting into this, and then you learn that people who live below the poverty line work more than 40-hour work weeks. In most cases, they work 2 jobs just to be able to take care of the household that they live on, to pay and believe that they're doing something good for society by paying their rent and paying their mortgages and paying their credit card debts and paying their car insurance and paying for the permission to get a driver's license and paying for the permission to do all kinds of things, and paying their tax. And they think that they're doing something to help out, and they don't understand why they can't get ahead and why they don't have all the advantages that everyone else does. And it's because they're kept there on purpose. It keeps them in control. You set a poverty line at a certain point, allow a non-governmental agency, the Federal Reserve, to control interest rates on every loan that exists out there, and you jack up inflation by poor laws, including such things as NAFTA or the UN and the creation of these groups that completely devalue America's ability to compete on a worldwide stage. And all you're doing is forcing your people into a lower sense of poverty, which allows them to be better controlled, because you then feed them the doctrine that if they just worked a little harder, they could be a great success. If they just go on American Idol, they can be the next wonderful person.
Yeah.
Everyone will love them, and all of their problems will disappear.
Yeah. Well, I earn barely above minimum wage anyway, see, so I don't often understand the complaints of these people, because they always end up having loads of children and stuff, and I've been living off that is basically the same as the poverty level. I've been living on that sort of level all my life, and I don't really have any major money problems, so I find it difficult to relate to such people. There's these things called condoms, you can try using them. I don't know. I can only speak for myself.
Yeah,
I know, but you have it.
Under no circumstance are we ever talking about. They've locked off all the land.
Sure. Well,
it's like space.
But to a certain extent, there is an over-concentration of population.
Yeah. They concentrate the population in certain areas to give the impression of overpopulation, but there's actually huge areas of land that's just like totally unoccupied, not used for farming or anything.
Well, and if there were a better use of the land that is open and available for farming, I mean, there are farmers out there who, because of the economic principle of the matter, allow acres and acres and acres and acres of food to just rot in their fields. I saw a story a few weeks back on the massive freezes that happened in the south, down and around Florida and everything, that created such a destruction of the crops, changed the whole value of the crop cycle, so that to raise everything to a total fruition and to pick it and then to try and sell it, they would lose money. So they were just letting half their acreage of crops just go to waste. And all I could think of is, well, why wouldn't you just allow anyone who wants to come on to pick or take care of or handle the gathering and harvesting of your crops to do so? Don't pay them, but just let them keep whatever they can pick. That way they've got food, they can feed themselves, they have something that they could trade or barter with somebody else for other kinds of food items or whatever else they might need, and you don't have something going to waste. But once money becomes the overriding principle in everything, that ceases to be an option. One thing to donate your money that you've earned to a charitable cause without having any idea of how it's being administered once you've given it. It's something else to actually take on the responsibility to give people the option of working for themselves and thusly relieving you of burden. Because if you let people come in and harvest all the crops and they're harvested and you don't have to worry about doing it yourself, because even if they rot, you still got to get rid of them, don't you?
Yeah.
If you've got free labor, you've got zero overhead. But they don't do that because we have a tendency to look on the poor in this country, and unfortunately, it like you had evidenced, we have a tendency to think of it as being an underclass. They're a lower class. They just don't work as hard. They don't care as much. They just run around and act like complete, utter maniacs and morons. And both of my parents are college educated, and I lived underneath the poverty level for most of my growing up existence.
Yeah.
So it's I think an awful lot of it is how or why you're willing to play the game. The more willing you are to play the game, and the more advantage they think they can get out of you if you're willing to play the game, the more successful that they're going to let you be.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Now, Maggie...
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm not like a massive financial success or whatever, career-wise or anything like that, but I have got a house, kind of, and all sorts of other things, but it's just because I'm persistent and I'm really stubborn, and all those sort of things.
I don't think anyone would ever believe you. Sorry. Small attempt.
I'm looking up the word obnoxious. Yeah, it's fine. I'm looking up the word obnoxious as well. I've been called obnoxious loads of times.
Well, you may find my picture next to it in the dictionary, so don't mean that doesn't include you.
I should jump in here, but I'm not.
And your radio silence once again is one of the most amazing things in the world.
Yeah, I noticed that.
People love me for my radio silence, I know.
Yeah, famous.
Yeah.
Well, and the advantage of keeping people in poverty, the advantage of keeping people poor is twofold, actually. First of all, it limits their amount of exposure to information that would actually set them free from their poverty, despite the efforts of trying to make sure that all these welfare people have access to the internet and everything else, because all that is just the information that they can glean from it. And most poor people aren't going to the internet to learn how to better themselves. They're going to the internet to do things like Facebook. And
yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's all it's going to result in. And I know they tried these social experiments before, like free education for all, and we'll give them the best books, and then everybody become like a nuclear scientist, and it doesn't happen in that way at all. They end up chucking the books into the wood burner.
Well, right, exactly.
They never provide the best books. They provide what they want the indoctrination to be. It always gets overridden. Like RoboCop, they put the 3 laws in, but then they put in the extra secret law. They can't.
Cannot terminate an employee of CCC, or whatever it was. Right,
OCP. But the thing is, they're so corrupt in the first place. They override their own. Even when they're trying to make a gesture of doing the right thing, it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
Because they're so fundamentally evil and wrong.
Well,
they're watching over the laptop. I mean, are they helping you or not? They can't do it. They just won't do it. That's why
there's no way of telling how limited the internet access is on these laptops as well, because if they're a known item, you could be going for a certain ISP which will block off your internet access to certain sites.
All things to do it on a Macintosh, what an incredible violation. You expect it on Windows.
Right. Sure. Well, and for those of you who are aware of it, it gets even worse too, because the latest Leapfrog commercial, in which they are trying to provide personal laptop computers for the children all over the entire world, especially in third world countries and everything else, has now extended to the point where they have taken a video image of John Lennon and had somebody dub over with a voice talking about how, can you imagine no countries? Well, I can. I change the world with my music. but you can help change the world by making sure that every child out there has access to a computer and the internet. John Lennon obviously would never have ever said in his entire existence things that he would have never been part of, things that he would have never contributed to in his entire existence. And it's just put out there to try and tap to the baby boomer generation and the baby boomer generation's kids to get them to, you know, oh wow, well John Lennon would have been for peace and understanding and changing the world. We need to change the world by making everyone just like us. We've got laptops and phones that will allow us to do everything we want, so let's make the whole world like us. We'll change the Well, how would it change if everyone's doing the exact same thing?
Do you know the details of the Imagine song?
Actually, you have told them to me, but for our listening audience out there, maybe Maggot doesn't know, why don't you let him know?
Well, I do know a few interpretations of it. You go ahead with the one.
Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. The Black Panthers put machine guns to James Brown's head. He didn't want to write political songs, so he wrote that in a hurry, which shows you how funky he can be under pressure, but because he was a genius. But apparently Imagine is the identical situation.
Okay.
He's recording an album there with the other two Beatles, not Paul, but and Phil Spector
George and Ringo.
Yeah, and Phil Spector's producing. But in the middle of the night, he's taken over to Trident, where the Rolling Stones recorded, and obviously with a gun to his head, forced to write this pro NWO song. And how do we know that happened? Well, Mark Lewiston's the session notes. He has that great book about Abbey Road, where all the tapes were recorded and all that stuff. But the music is his own father's novelty song. He hated his father. The father abandoned the family, and when he got rich, the father showed back up and tried to cash in and make a novelty song and all that. And he even talked later in his 1980 Playboy interview about, unfortunately, I have like a mechanics or like a carpenter type mentality where if it's for money or if it's something like that, I can just write a unique melody. I never rip anyone off or something like that because I don't have to, something like that. He wasn't being bragging. He was just saying, he was sort of lamenting the fact that he had a mechanical kind of a facility there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so why would he rip off his own father? He used to play that at parties, saying to show people how evil his father was for ripping him off and stuff like that. I think, and a lot of people think, this is a cry for help. This is, they're holding a gun to my head. This is obviously Freddie Lennon. That's my love. That's my life. You know, the song from his father that he hated so much. This is not what I intended to say. This isn't my greatest song. This is a cry for help. They have a gun to my head.
Yeah. So he wrote his dad wrote the lyrics as well, or did his original lyrics?
It's just the melody from his father's novelty song.
I see.
He never worked with his father on a song.
No.
You see what I'm saying? No. The father just showed up and went to the tabloids, and the tabloids arranged for him to cut a novelty record, you know. So, but that was the tune. I mean, when you can get it on YouTube. Freddie Lennon or Alfred Lennon, that's my love, that's my life, and then there's, I forgot the third part of the phrase, but it's identical. You know what I mean? He didn't have to do that. He did it because there was a gun to his head. I mean,
it's funny because a lot of people fall for that song as well.
Yeah, all these churches and things always, that's the reason they have to damn John Lennon and all that. I almost dumped it until I realized, oh my God, it's a cry for help.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious when you actually read into the lyrics. Imagine no countries, no borders, and all this, and nothing to live.
No possession.
Yeah, nothing to live or die for. I mean, like, how obvious, and he's like, oh, we've got nothing to live for. Yeah, great. Sounds wonderful. Sounds like in paradise.
That album's really cohesive if you skip that first. I always skip that first track on the CD or on the record, you know, because I just hated that song. And then to find out all these years later what it really was is pretty darn interesting. Yeah.
Well, and touching upon that whole idea of the utopia, and just to run on a slight little tangent here, but kind of tying in with what we were talking about earlier, I had a conversation with a friend of mine here in Michigan earlier this morning while I was out and about, and he actually works for the engineering department of the city that I live near, and he and I got into a conversation about all these idiotic, stupid people who open their mouths and try to talk about criminal justice system or politics and you can tell as soon as they open their mouth and start talking that all they're doing is regurgitating exactly what they've been force-fed. And the reason the topic came up was because we were talking about the upcoming governor's election here, and we got to talking about just because people have the right to vote, does it necessitate that they should be allowed to vote, especially if they aren't informed? And we got into talking about the levels of information people have. Well, he was sharing a conversation with me that this other individual had started with him, and they were talking about the criminal justice system, and they were talking about how, he didn't think people should be incarcerated for nonviolent crimes, and doesn't think this, doesn't think that. And so they got to talking about how the system should operate, and this guy brought up, well, communism is the way to go. And I'm keeping my mouth shut, listening to my friend retell this conversation. My friend comes off with, well, that's primarily an economic platform, et cetera, and starts laying into him. Well, apparently the guy, this third-party individual, started using words like utopia and perfect society.
Perfect society. Yeah.
And I just am sitting there holding my tongue, trying to keep from laughing at the absolute idiocy that constantly gets perpetrated on people.
That's the big lie. See, that's what makes it different than fascism. Really, the one is the corporations owning the government, the other one is the government owning the corporations. But the difference is, with fascism, they tell you it's a police state, we're going to rule you. Communism tells you, well, we're sorry, we have to do this briefly, soon we won't need this anymore, and everybody's got stars in their eyes like morons, thinking that one day we're going to be all equal. They're never going to do that. It's social monarchism. They have an appointed class instead of a group of knights and dukes and all this stuff. They have, in fact, that the appointed members of the party who will come and inspect your house and stuff like that, rather than the prince come doing it. They want your daughter. But it's identical. It's social monarchy, and then all on the lie that one day the police state will be gone and we'll all be equal. This is all for the better good.
We'll be free.
It's a lie. They never wanted to do that, and they never will take the police state away. Under no circumstances.
Well, and I think that's evidenced by if you look at what happened in Eastern Europe. That's exactly what they did there.
And is China relaxing the police state at any point? No, they're never going to do that. It's all a lie.
Well, it's opposite ends of the spectrum coming back around. Yeah. But then to sit and listen to my friend talk about how he's very conservative as far as his criminal justice thought process is.
No, he's one of the dupes who believes the lie.
Mm-hmm.
That it's all for the better good, and we're all one day.
Yeah, that's
I don't want to
the
swear on the radio,
Nations,
but there's a right word to use while describing it.
Does it have the acronym BS?
Sorry, Maggot, what were you saying?
Is it acronymous to BS?
No, let it go. I'm a responsible party now.
And we do appreciate that. Yeah, I am kind of echoing pretty bad here.
You're all right.
We can trim that out there.
It'll clear up. It just I know this will be hard. Don't talk for a second. It clears up. If you guys could only hear the music I play behind you guys.
I would, but I think what I think it is. It isn't that I'm echoing so much; is that I'm just picking up myself on your radio that you're playing broadcasting where you are.
All right. Yeah.
You need to put on a pair.
Can you turn the radio off? I need to global.
It's so loud because that's the volume for broadcast.
Gotcha. Anyway, put it on a pair of headphones so we can't all hear it on this end.
Okay, I'm working on another method.
Fair enough. Not a problem. No big deal whatsoever. But I found it ridiculous that they would take John Lennon and use him as, once again, after he's dead, to reuse him in an element, in a method of perpetrating, once again, New World Order control.
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
Bush's business partner was responsible for killing him. The guy sent his. He had that World Vision missionaries, the senior Hinckley, and the guy was so callous he sent his own son out to kill Reagan, brainwashing his own son. But to test the mechanism out so that Bush could be assured that they would kill Reagan, they sent another guy who was also in the World Vision missionaries to go kill John Lennon. Mark David Chapman was trained along with the son there in South America, World Vision missionaries with MK Ultra and all that stuff. Bush's own business partner did this stuff. Hinckley Sr. So I mean, of course they're going to use his name. They're the ones that killed him, and for a reason, no less. You know, so they feel they own him now. You know, they own his memory and they own everything. You know, he had to be.
Well, I think
political purpose.
Generally, the NWO is associated with fascism and like police brutality and all the police in big uniforms and black uniforms, and the UN is associated with peace and nirvana and utopia, and we will have a perfect society and all this sort of rubbish. I think that's the two sides they play. I mean, they're the same objective at the end. They want everybody to like live in a safe state of permanent bliss while they're being screwed over. Like, is it Aldous Huxley said with Brave New World? He wrote that one. No, I think they're both two. It's like left and right hand of the same agenda overall. I mean, obviously they're not at odds with each other. United Nations and the NWO, or whatever you want to call it.
And I know people like Canadians, especially ones I know here. They love to blame us for American foreign policy, as if Rumsfeld calls me up and asks me what I want. But you're 100% correct, because if you notice, the United States always backs the dictator. They take out the democratically elected leader to put in the dictator.
Well, sure.
They did that in Iran. They got rid of Mossadegh. They did it Arbenz for the United Fruit Company, for a guy that lives next door to my parents.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that address it is. Just kidding.
And the UN doesn't get painted in the bad light that the NWO, etc., gets painted in, because they're all like peace and love. You know, they're always like, "Oh, we're the people who." I know.
Slavery, you know, it's all peace and love while they're taking your children in a foreign country where nobody's watching. You know.
Yeah, it's peace and love on the TV and throughout the media, and so everybody's like, "Oh, they're the good guys. They're the ones who are going to stop them from being nasty to us." Whereas actually, what actually happens off the camera, and you know, there's so much camera footage you don't ever see, especially in war situations. You only see the officially recognised, approved BBC correspondents. And, you know, a lot of people you do see in war situations are actors anyway, you know, it's like, especially,
just real briefly, at least the BBC's coverage of a worldwide event trumps America's coverage of worldwide events. People who study worldwide events through mainstream media here in the United States have been constantly and will continue to constantly be totally deluded and fooled into believing that America is and maintains its identity on the stage that they force us to believe. I mean, half the news that you people receive through the BBC out there, we never even hear about.
Yeah.
So as censored as they are, in your opinion, double that, triple that, and you get the censoring of the international news that we wind up with here in the U.S.
Yeah, I don't think they can get away with letting it devolve to the level of the US, because there's enough people that watch US TV and UK TV, you know, alternating between the two. They're just like people who work in the media in the BBC would just kick up a fuss saying they're just emulating it too much, and is to keep a separate identity, I suppose.
Fair enough.
They try different systems in different areas. They're more free in some ways in England, then they're more police there. Then we're more free in some way, and they try different stuff. They don't try the entire system everywhere, or you'd freak out.
That's right.
They're planning to put all the systems everywhere. You know.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
go ahead.
So sort of a meaned out system, you know, averaged out of all the different systems that work. So they'll like probably give us the American sensationalism. You'll get the straight talking news reporters. you know, I'd say they're straight talking, but obviously they're not. they will talk to you, you know, like that Oldwoman character. You know, he always talks really seriously, Mr. President and stuff, and he just looks totally ridiculous compared to the rest of the Americans. But that's like, he's just like part of an experiment to see, how would the American audience respond to somebody speaking, you know, like they do in the UK in the news. Except we don't even do that so much anymore. But that's sort of like what's associated with British, especially the news, English news. There's the sort of like really straight-faced, serious, you know, we know what we're talking about, sort of thing.
Just a quick note on that. People here in the United States, our impression, the vast majority of people's impression of Europe is the British accent. I mean, they'll set a movie that's supposed to take place in France and give everyone British accents, and people go, oh, it's European, those people are French. Because we have this, there's this overriding concept for some reason that if someone speaks with a British accent, they come across as sounding more intelligent and more cultured than anyone speaking in an American accent.
Yeah, that's the impression I got as well.
Also, to point out to Americans that you might as well screw yourself having gone and gotten that degree in you know, presenting the news and all that stuff. I don't know what you call that. They always bring on the endless British people on Fox News and the other channels as the correspondent, just to make sure that you know that there is no job for you.
Yeah. No, it's like in
English now on Fox News.
Really? English style, is it, or actually
they're
English?
People from England.
Okay.
That's all the news.
Actually,
all the new they have the super hot supermodels that they bring on, which is supposed to attract you. Like nobody has the attractive women that Fox News has. But but not only that, then they're alternated by men who are all from England.
Yes. If you remember back to the 1980 series V, the guy who was the ambassador. Okay, basically all the rest of them were like American sounding. All the rest of the V's were American sounding, except for perhaps the royalty, Diane, and it was blatantly based on the royal family anyway. Diane and the others with the same names. I think there was a William there as well. The ambassador was like the most obviously English sounding one. He was actually Supreme Commander. He was called John. He's the guy who said, we have a small flotilla of 60 warships stationed above your cities, or something. That was all to give you the impression that at the top he's going to have some English-speaking guy.
Right. Well, and now the top-speaking individual is a quote-unquote hot-looking brunette. Is a ethereal-looking brunette. So once again, it still justifies that whole concept that Fox News is trying to promote, that it's either going to be a British-speaking male or a hot woman.
Yeah, because of course she couldn't be blonde because blondes are bimbos. There's a popular conception.
Right, exactly.
So brunette means like, she can be as hot as a blonde bimbo if she dyed her hair, but also she's more intelligent than the bimbo. So she knows what she's talking about, so she wouldn't be lying to us, etc., etc. She's not just reading from Q sheet or off the screen.
Right, exactly.
So it's the whole con job, really.
Well, and I wonder if maybe that's part of their reason of using John Lennon to support and promote even more of the whole NWO thing, is because of the voice of authority. I mean, using dead celebrities for the purpose of, promoting a commercial enterprise isn't new in this country, at least in the U.S. Not for the last few years. They've used Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire in different classic movie roles, and they've merely replaced their partner with things like Bissell vacuum cleaners that they're dancing with, or all kinds of different ridiculous things like that. And it's done to stimulate a connection between people's minds of some iconic image, and then tying that iconic image to something they're selling.
Yeah. Now, one other thing about the V series, the Ambassador John, I checked up the actor who he was, and as I recall, he was actually American as well. So even that was a lie. But he was putting on the British accent and the sort of like sort of airs and graces, sort of like being an English lord. He was like talking like this and very really know what I'm talking about, and when I speak, it's got great gravitas.
Right.
He's important.
Howard Stern feels the same way. I mean, like, I've noticed a lot when Stern wants to shut down a conversation or shut down an argument, he will scream John Lennon lyrics. Just out of the blue. You know what I mean? He just feels that strongly about John Lennon, and that's, you know what I mean? Or when he's really angry, he'll put on a John Lennon song and start singing it. You know what I mean? It's bizarre.
Sure.
But I don't know why I've taken that personally. But I do.
Isn't John a really English name though? I don't know this, but when you say that John is like a really English sounding name, like if you're John, you're bound to be English.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Hard to say. I don't.
There's not huge amounts of. I can't recall off the top of my head the huge amounts of Johns being American.
Actually, John's a rather popular common name here. John, Mike, and Chris are probably the three most popular American names of my generation.
Okay.
Elvis would probably be the generation before mine. Just for the
Chuck.
Really, if you boil it down, Michael.
Yeah.
Angel Michael.
Sure. Yeah. That's true. But it was just really disheartening to see him constantly used in that perspective, and I wouldn't be embarrassed or anything in any way by your feeling offended by him being used in that way, because I definitely echo that, because I think if he's in a grave and his corpse has any animation, it's probably rolled over every single time that Imagine's been played in a church or at a school assembly or sung by somebody trying to unite the world in this great way, etc., etc. So it's hard to say if he's face down or face up at this point, but knowing that he's being used for the purpose of this abject promotion of consumerism and communistic extension of pure information, just as information, to the vast amount of people across the entire world. I'm surprised his corpse hasn't punched its way out of the grave and gone and throttled the people at the head of this ad campaign for a misuse of his property and his name.
No, I just feel we're brainwashed.
Well, sure.
I mean, I take it that personally, but then I back up and I say, why? Why do I think it? But it's because I really think we're brainwashed. I don't know.
Well, sure. I mean, the Beatles are huge over here, Maggot, especially John Lennon. Unfortunately, he has been sainthooded here. With most people, I think, sainthooded him with the Imagine song. I mean, the Beatles have to have a presence in England that is just astronomical comparatively, but is Lennon given that same type of credence for his Imagine song, or is it more the rest of the body of his work?
Well, the Beatles have kind of been superseded by bands like Oasis and even like Blur and stuff, and the indie movement in the 1990s. But they're still obviously well known and stuff and respected. But we get a bit too much of the Macca syndrome here. That's Paul McCartney, and he just he's called Macca. Yeah,
well, your whole impression of Ringo is when he said, "Thank you very much, peace and love. I'm not signing anything more."
Ringo Starr was like permanently drunk for about 40 years or something, wasn't he? It's the only way he can get through anything.
Well, any individual who decides that they want to write the worst songs in Beatles history, and then the Beatles finally dissolve, he goes on and joins the quote-unquote new age movement. Woo. then
Sounds good.
Right, exactly. And then starts writing music for the New Age movement. And then tells all of the Beatles fans, oh, peace and love, excellent, peace and love, thank you so very much. I appreciate everything that you want, but don't send me anything. I'm not autographing anything more. I don't want anything to do with that, so thank you. But love you all, peace and love. That would be like, Bill Clinton going, well, thank you all very much. I appreciate the fact that you all still love me, but don't ask me anything about being president of the United States ever again.
He'll take your money, though. Bill Clinton does. He takes loads of money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Completely and totally.
I think it's more up north. They're probably more popular up north because they obviously came from Liverpool, and Liverpool is a bit up north from here.
Well, and you're, I have never been to England, so I'm not familiar. When you say up north from where you are, you're talking like the north end of London area, or are you talking like outside of London itself?
It's basically if you draw a horizontal line in between the two sections. If you bisected England, north would be north of that line. I think it's Yorkshire is up north, and there's this artificial divide between the two countries, which is totally artificial. Probably the United Nations' fault again, because you get a few of them come over down south and they're like, oh, everything's amazing up north, and it's really shit here, and you've got fucking crap jobs, and your crap cars, and your women are crap, and your houses are crap, and your cat's crap, and your dog's crap, and your beer's shite, and we've got proper swearing over up north, and all this, proper work. And it's like, why don't you just fuck off back there then, And they never do. They'll just carry on, spend all night just going on about how much better it is up north. And it's like, well, why are you permanently depressed up north? So that we come down here to have a laugh.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have hit the top of the hour. It is 2 o'clock here on the Freeman Radio Network. You are listening to American Freeman. We are glad that you're with us today. We do broadcast live every afternoon, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the U.S. I am your host, Don Freeman on the Land Perry. I am joined, as always, by our compatriot from the non-patriot state of Great Britain, because only Americans can be patriots if you believe the government line out there. We're glad to have him with us. Maggot, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We're also have with us the president of the American chapter of the Freeman Society, the World Freeman Society, Mr. Evstratios Constantine. Last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce until I've seen a pronunciation guide for it.
Moralities, I think. Moralities. Okay.
I'm sorry, say it again. It starts with an M and ends in a Greek-sounding name. So,
Moralities, is it?
Moraites? And we're definitely glad to have both of you gentlemen out there with us today. We do want to say hi to all of our listeners. Glad you're with us. We definitely always want to hear from you. If you're on Skype, you can get a hold of us at Keep Truth Free. If you would like us to call out to you, because we do not currently have a call-in line, you can email us. You can contact us through the forums or the blog line at worldofreemansociety.org and go into the America's chapter section of that, and you can find links to both Evstratios and myself. We definitely always want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on in your world. We want to know your questions and your concerns. We're talking today specifically right now about the nanny state, the use of celebrities to help promote communism and the New World Order. And we want to know what you think. So call us, contact us, email us. We always want to hear from you.
Did Michael Jackson did they actually end up releasing that documentary on him called History or something?
Yep. That was in theaters. It was a short release in theaters for only about 2 weeks, and from what I heard, the people that were huge, gigantic Michael Jackson fans went to it and saw it and loved it and freaked out. And anyone who has a level of intelligence about Michael Jackson went to it and went, well, that didn't answer any questions.
Really? Yeah.
So, I personally have not seen the movie. I would like to see it at some point, more because of trying to understand a bit more about the problems that affected him in his life and what went on. And I have a doubt that they're going to touch on any of that.
No, I mean, I saw a trailer clip for it, and I don't think it was put onto the video. It was just totally surreal. It was him basically dressed as a Nazi in the middle of a Nazi rally, but it was surrounded by Chinese soldiers, and instead of wearing pure black, I think it was pure red. And he went into the middle of the rally and he started doing his usual dance routine, and they all imitated it at exactly the same time in sync. And he sort of finished off with almost a Nazi salute. I was like, yeah, but it was quite bizarre. I didn't really understand the message of it. It's like, what, Michael Jackson's secretly controlling China? He's Adolf Hitler in China. It just seemed it didn't make sense.
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't seen the movie, so I haven't seen that. I haven't seen any trailer in the vein that hypes that. What I can tell you,
I think it was probably taken, pulled. I don't think they would have put it in. I think it was just there to just freak out a few people.
Well, what I can tell you is that there have been, within the last couple of years, even precursing his passing, a variety of viral videos posted on YouTube in which, wedding parties at the reception have all broken out into doing the Thriller dance.
Yeah.
And that's become real huge to the point now where everyone who has their wedding videotaped wants to do some kind of different thing and different choreographed thing to a song so that they can post it on the online and get their 15 minutes of fame. But I do know that part of the calisthenics in a Chinese prison, they actually had all of the inmates that were allowed into the yard practice and learn the Thriller routine, and then videotaped it and posted it on YouTube.
That stuff the other day, and I would say that if I was at a wedding where that garbage was happening, I would just walk right out the door and leave. And she was offended by that. I mean, you should send those videos of this garbage. What kind of idiot are you? You could dance in the middle of down the aisle, and I would be out the door. I don't want to see that.
Once again, it's
taking my gift back.
Static going on here, ladies and gentlemen. Please let this be empty. But no, it's first of all, it is idiocy. But I'm not sure if the preview that you saw was definitely Michael Jackson leading that group, or if that was just something CGI'd into it. But I would definitely question the reasoning behind it. I mean, the fascinating thing is once you become aware, once you start waking up, once you start paying attention to what's going on in the world out there, you start watching TV programs and commercials and videos and all of these different items of media culture that are thrown at you over and over again, and you begin to reevaluate them in terms of accurately trying to understand what's being thrust upon you. Because it can be dangerous to automatically assume that what you're being given is going to be absolute verifiable truth. And you've got to be very careful about it. And,
sure, I reckon I probably saw some outtakes.
Yeah.
I can see, I'm watching clips now, and I'm seeing clips around the clips I saw.
Okay. Well, and that's why I would always encourage people to...
Still there? I thought you were quiet.
if you take the time to pay attention to it, you may be able to see the blue screen on it. I think what that really attests to more than anything else is the power of Michael Jackson's influence upon the worldwide stage, which is why once he, and again, I'm a believer. I'm sure Stratios is. I don't know if you are, Maggot. I don't know how many other people are, but there are definitely a vast group of individuals out there who believe that Michael Jackson suffered from MK Ultra response therapy. I mean, he definitely was subjected to a particular level of control and indoctrination in order that a particular message and control element was sent out. And once he hit an age in which that training started to dissipate and fall off, it was at that moment that his mental breakdown occurred, that he started being accused of all of these different things to discredit him, that created this vast conspiracy about him being a pedophile or a child molester or anything else was created, so that they have the ability to limit his, or the attempt to limit his ability to impact the worldwide stage, because as his music progressed after he was 30 years old, it started to be more and more about the delusions that he has been exposed to, the delusions and lies that have been foisted upon him, the abuse that he suffered, and his attempts at...
Look at it this way. Now,
Go ahead.
I'm ripping off some comedian that I heard who had a really good point. He got up to blame. Okay, let's say he was molesting somebody, which I don't think for a minute that's what was going on. But let's say that was true.
That he was the perpetrator of...
He was the parents who wanted to meet Michael Jackson. It wasn't that the kids, I want to Michael Jackson. They never heard of Thriller. But at the time when the children were going to the house, he didn't have any hits. And he didn't have anything that appealed to children at the time. And so these are their star effing parents who drop off. I mean, they would do anything to drop off the kids so they could accidentally meet Michael in the hallway or something. I mean, that's the point of that. So they would be 100% at fault if anything did happen. I mean, what kind of moron uses your kid to meet Michael Jackson? This is your child.
Well, the same kind of
I'm
morons
in a good mood today, huh?
had the same kind of people.
Yeah,
that their
You
children.
guys should read my text.
it's fine.
Famous. Oh, I read your earlier texts. Those were rather amusing, and that's
His movie's just really weird, though.
Say that again, Maggot.
It's like, have you seen Moonwalker? I know, Moonwalker, the movie. Have you seen it when you're sober?
Yeah.
It's like
Yes,
about
I've seen
90%
it, so-
crap.
I don't think
Yeah,
it's crap. I think it's
there's
definitely-
about maybe 20 minutes of good material on there.
I wouldn't call it crap. I would
An hour
definitely.
of it or something. It's just like,
Well, see, when all the
Right.
magic wore off, his mind control, he made really kind of lame material.
Sure.
It wasn't his fault. I mean, he was recovering from mind control.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I mean. It was just like a lot of the movie was just old recycled clips of videos and stuff, and he started out as a montage, and it went on for about 20 minutes. And you're thinking like, you can get that on YouTube anyway nowadays. And what's the point of just doing it as a montage? You can get that in any home video anywhere in the world, sort of thing. And then you put it on as his big movie. And when the story finally starts, it's okay. But there's so much wasted time on there. He could have just taken that bit out and put an extra half an hour of actually storyline.
Well,
The bit at the beginning where basically they were covering his career or something. They started off with the Jackson 5 and showed all the old videos. I mean, what's the point? You're supposed to get 100 million people watching that in Hollywood, and all you're doing is playing really old 70s music videos.
oh, but you have to remember that when Moonwalker came out, they were trying to reintroduce to a whole new culture of people who may or may not have been aware of the long-range experience that this individual is supposed to have grown out of. I mean, when I was 9, 10, 12 years old, I certainly heard the songs ABC and all the other early Jackson 5 hits, but I had no correlation between that and Michael Jackson as Thriller or Beat It or anything like that. So... Guessed what?
Cult ritual and all this stuff.
Well, sure.
Check out Lennon Honor Film.
Yeah, folks, Lenny's absolutely right. Go to Lennon Honor Films. That's spelled LENONHONOR Films.com. There's a whole breakdown of a number of movies that he's put together, examining the...
I'll give you a secret. LennonHonorFilms.com, LENON/media. And that's where you can bypass the
Right, that'll take you straight to the downloadable file. It's actually very good stuff, ladies and gentlemen. He's got a film all on the purveyance and nature of evil, examining things even from today's music culture. He examines a previous music culture. He examines an awful lot of elements about how this whole society of cult culture is being perpetrated upon us. In fact, we are I am, if no one else is, actively attempting to get him as a guest on the show one day so we can talk to him and find out his thoughts, his feelings, and have a better understanding of what he's doing. And we'll definitely keep you updated as that progress moves along. If he is, I have a limited connection with him other than watching his movies. I think he'd be a great guest to have on. I think he'd be a powerful person to talk about some of these things. Because while we are always trying to advocate and move towards Freeman issues and how to identify yourself as a sovereign in your own Freeman nation, it's necessary to understand the nature of the evil that you're standing up against. And Lennon Honor Films /media.
I've got one other thing to...
Go ahead.
I don't know how we can talk about Freeman's on the show, but...
One other thing to mention about Moonwalker. Well, I might mention some others.
Whoa. One person at a time here.
Go ahead,
Maggot.
Okay. The one thing that really annoyed me about Moonwalker, the movie, was what he'd done to his songs, or what they done to his songs, is they already released as pop songs, and they sounded different on the movie than they do on the albums. Because I bought the album Thriller and Bad, and the versions that appeared on the movies are even more censored and even more pop friendly than the it's just his compromise. The whole thing was, so I thought it was just compromise. Really frustrating to watch.
Sure.
Speed Demon, when they did Speed Demon, that was like almost a totally different song to the album version, because the album version obviously starts off with like and all that, the racing cars, old driving off, and I thought it was really cool. Because I took it literally as a speed demon like Nike or something. But it was just all the covers they did. It was like covers of its own songs that he just written just to make him onto the movie.
Well, you know how Skype works.
It's really weird when you got such massive radio penetration as Michael Jackson has too.
You're breaking up.
Breaking up.
The minute you make sense on Skype.
I'm here.
Your voice was breaking up a little bit. Maybe it's just the minute you make sense on Skype, you can't communicate. I mean, if you talked about nothing all day, perfect, perfect clarity. It's when they start tuning in, I think.
Yeah.
I think what the big thing is.
My point was just basically that he's edited his own lyrics and rewrote his own music just to make it for the movie. And I just didn't see any point when he supposedly made the whole movie himself out of his own money.
Sure. Well,
That
had to pay debts. No, that came across just fine. So, I agree with you. Having watched the movie and having listened to the albums, I definitely noticed a disconnect. I think at the time when I watched it, I attributed it just to Hollywood trying to recreate something in an image that was sellable. The older I get, the more I understand, the more I pay attention.
Yeah.
The more I realize that it was purposefully done. I think, especially here in the United States, because we're given some...
one other thing,
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. One other thing I can mention, Fat Bloke with Ponytail, that's what he's written in the screenplay as. Fat Man with Ponytail, that's his controller. The one in the movie, there's bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's like your MK Ultra reference.
Fat Man in a ponytail.
It's really hard to these guys. Where's the battery from there?
Okay. Can you pick me up right now? Hello?
Hello. Still there. Go ahead.
That was it, really? That amazing controversy. I mean, nobody figured that out. Yeah. The person who's mentioned in the screenplay and is on the movie is Fat Man with Ponytail. The guy who's behind all the dogs and stuff. The dogs represented the media, obviously, in the Hounds of Hell and all that sort of stuff. He was actually his controller or handler in MKL.
Gotcha. I guess I never had realized that before.
Okay, we all yeah. Yeah. It says I'm unintelligible. Who? All those.
It's not you, it's guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the movie, you can actually tell it. Okay. You can tell because he's behind he's behind the media or whatever, and he's behind the being chased by dogs, and yeah, that's just him to being hounded by the media. And you know, they also use the pig symbology as well in Just Leave Me Alone, because over in the UK, the media were represented by the paparazzi, and the tabloids in particular represented by pigs. And listing images, that was gamers that got read, you know, even and always represented as pigs. I think he did actually manage to chuck that controller though, the fat controller, in the end, but obviously after the movie.
Fair enough. Well, but I think the point's well taken, especially when you take into consideration what he obviously was trying to do once like Lenny said, the magic had worn off. Was everything seemed to be more towards indicting this whole worldwide movement towards fostering division, fostering control, and everything else. So I guess the guy with his with the ponytail or whatever, the individual behind the mask, much like the way the mafia is set up, definitely had to be indicating towards something. But I have a tendency to believe that identity was lost on a grand number of people.
Definitely, yeah. It was all sort of like Wizard of Oz references and stuff as well. Really, it's just man behind a mask or behind a wall giving orders.
Sure.
That's sort of basically what he was fighting against the whole movie. He couldn't figure out who was behind it, or when it turned out to be the fat bloke.
Right.
Yeah, and the fat controller is another programming archetype as well. Goes back to R.W. Aldrin or something. I was going to check out tank engine. The Pearl engines was called the controller. He did weird things, like he had this one. I think he's called Henry or something. One of the engines is called Henry, and Henry refused to do something or other, or he got modified, and the modifications didn't work, and he was always complaining that he had his boiler was too small or something. His steam boiler was too small, and so he got bricked up. He got bricked up for years, and it's just like, are you more on a tank engine driver? That's the series. Somebody who didn't know Ben's, exclusive, sealed in. Ivor, the engine is a Welsh. It's a Welsh engine anyway. It's a Welsh sort of tank engine. It was sort of a Welsh version of the Thomas tank engine without so much of a complicated plot. You had the little red dragon who ignited the
ladies and gentlemen,
coal.
He actually makes more sense than most people.
You can't hear me at all.
You can hear half of what he says. He makes more sense even than most people.
Yeah.
David, Lenny, I'm gonna interrupt you all for just a quick second here. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being with us today. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break here for the cause. It's just about 2:25, almost 2:30 in the afternoon. You are listening to American Freeman on the Freeman Radio Network. We definitely want to hear from you. We want you to be part of this show, but we will be back shortly and continue with our conversation on life, the universe, and everything. Don't forget, just because people tell you the answer is 2 doesn't make it true.
Maggot was in the kitchen cooking breakfast for the Queen. The Queen was in the parlor playing piano for the children of the King. Cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry. The King was in the garden picking flowers for a friend who came to play. The Queen was in the playroom painting pictures for the children's holiday. Cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry. The Duchess of Kirkcaldy, always smiling and arriving late for tea. Duke was having problems with a message at the local bird and bee. Cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry. At 12 o'clock a meeting round the table for a seance in the dark, with voices out of nowhere put on specially by the children for a laugh. Cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh. She's old enough to know better, so cry, baby, cry, make your mother sigh.
Let's all get up and dance to a song that was a hit before your mother was born. Though she was born a long, long time ago, your mother should know. Your mother should know. Sing it again. Let's all get up and dance to a song that was a hit before your mother was born. Though she was born a long, long time ago, your mother should know. Your mother should know. Lift up your hearts and sing me a song that was a hit before your mother was born. Though she was born a long, long time ago, your mother should know. Your mother should know. Your mother should know. Your mother should know.
Here
we are.
Give us a heads up.
We're back. Yeah, we're back.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to American Freeman on the Freeman Radio Network. We're glad to have you with us today. Once again, we do broadcast Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We always want to hear from you. We want to have you contact us, send us your questions, send us your concerns, send us your issues. You can reach us if you're on Skype at Keep Truth Free. You can also contact either myself or one of our other co-hosts here today, the president of the American chapter of the World Freeman Society, Mr. Abstratios. You can get a hold of either one of us and find out more information about us at worldfreemansociety.org. We are pleased to also have with us today, as we do every day, our British compatriot, from all the way on the other side of the pond, who is currently whisking off the last traces of volcanic ash from Iceland, even as we speak. Maggot, thank you for being with us today.
Hopefully I won't get so choppy on the line this time, so I can't get him to cut off. Like that. Yeah, volcanic ash, ha ha ha, very funny. It's like, we see no trace of it.
Well, there you go, folks. The whole story is a myth. It never happened. You're just being shown stock footage of the eruption of Mount St. Helens.
Probably.
If you listen to Hawks Cafe, you have to go to abeldanger.blogspot.com. They knew about volcanic ash and the volcanic ash warnings that planes have been getting for many years, and the phony reports of volcanic ash that the planes have been getting for many years. And they talked about it a couple weeks ago before any of this happened, and then now it's the front page story. So it's really bizarre that it would be the front page. Abel Danger, ABEL Danger.blogspot.com. They have a fantastic presence. They don't have their own radio show. They appear on other people's shows. But they're great, and their stuff doesn't like. You have people have slightly different theories about 9/11 and stuff. Everybody's theory agrees with Hawks Cafe. They found the underlying people. I feel like I'm advertising, but it's all free stuff. You know, selling for certain.
If all the airports are closed over here, or if any of them closed over here, it's not even mentioned in the papers. This volcanic ash, what it supposedly is somehow floating 20,000 feet up in the air, and it's mainly made of glass, and so it's invisible. But it was like yesterday, it was clear blue skies all day. Today the weather isn't so good, but this is England, and the weather's really variable, and I don't really put it down to anything. It's a bit cloudy, but it's certainly not. We're not choking in smog or anything like that. We haven't got a pea super, as they used to say in London.
And you know, one Mount St. Helens dwarfs by far the entire industrial output of humans in all of history. I mean, it so dwarfs it isn't even funny.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't say that on the news. I mean, okay, there's volcanic ash, but it's so much more intense from a volcano, and none of it has anything to do with global warming, because the whole thing's a lie. But
yeah.
But to then try to blame us for something like that, and then the solution is to tax us and make a world government based on environmentalism, so we can enforce Agenda 21 from '91. Oh, what a good idea, Long.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get right back to this.
And give it up.
We'll get right back to that in just a second, and we also do want to say hello out there to David Ray of the of his family clan, and we'll keep that off the air for right now. But thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate your help and work on everything, and it's nice to have you with us.
One thing about David Ray, he's loyal. You know, he is.
I missed the first hour.
Well, you know that's
just in general. I mean, you don't have to listen to the show.
But we
number one
actually do. I need to formulate questions and get them on there. So you know.
Well, you know, you can only do that if you've have existences that have happened in your life.
And David Ray is our BitTorrent guy and our seeder for the
show.
Yeah,
I've only got a few things though that are going up.
I have to get you more stuff, but he's going to help us out.
For those of you who are wondering, that means you can go to Demonoid and you can search for our radio shows as well as anything affiliated with us.
Conspiracy Central, consend.org.
Yep, go to consend.org.
Conspiracy Central and ISO Hunt. I'll get us up on Pirate Bay, but right now their mail servers are down, so I can't get my account reestablished. So. And
then I uploaded everything to TalkShoe. So it's going to be a podcast from TalkShoe. It'll also be a podcast from the WorldFreemanSociety.org. So we're going to get the show up as many different ways as possible. And then maybe, once you guys have heard us on the archives, you can call in and talk to us.
Where's it at on TalkShoe? Where's it at on TalkShoe?
I don't know. I'm going to work it out. I don't even know if it's listed. I've been toying with it today.
Because I found your Keep Truth Free.
Long list of numbers, letters, and characters. So we're trying to simplify that down at the moment.
I don't think I'm bitchy today because I'm bitchy. I think it's physical. I think I feel sick. It's not because I'm intentionally particularly bitchy today. I am.
Woo! I found one of the Freeman Society ones.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are definitely glad that you're here with us. If you're listening out there right now and want to talk to us, want to ask questions, want to find out more about us, you can do one of two things. You can go to worldfreemansociety.org and check out the Chapter Americas page and learn more about us here, and read up our blog, check through the forums, and find out how to listen to us and how to contact us. You can also, if you are on Skype, you can call us at Keep Truth Free. That's all one word. Wait,
I just got to answer the door.
We definitely want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on in your world.
I made a tiny URL. You guys know what tiny URL is? It's tinyurl.com/WFS for World Freeman Society podcast. WFS podcast. And it'll take you right to our TalkShoe page.
Say that again real quick for our listeners out there. tinyurl.com.
The old deal with tiny URLs, you could just tell people 6 characters and it would take you to whatever the URL is. But now you can make custom ones, so I made it WFS podcast to put after tinyurl.com. And it'll take you straight to our TalkShoe page.
So if somebody were to punch that in, it would be tinyurl.com
excellent.
/ Well, you would hope they would. But then is it backslash?
That's forward.
There we go.
Slash.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep,
Excellent.
best pod. No, actually, that's a backslash. A backslash moves from the front and comes towards the back. A forward slash starts at... No, that's not a backslash. That's a forward slash.
I can't see that. You're talking about stuff you can't see.
A backslash moves towards the back. A forward slash moves towards the front, for those out there who might be wondering. So that's http://tinyurl.com/WFS podcast. And you can go ahead and link into our podcasts and listen to us on your iPhones and be able to find out how much we enjoy interacting with each other every single day. Once again, we are on Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, U.S. time. And we always want to hear from you. We want to know what your thoughts and your feelings are. We are talking today. We're talking today about how to recognize and notice when the NWO is using current icon figures to explain and express and promote their activities, such as John Lennon's video being used to promote sending computers to kids all around the world so that they have a control element over the information that they're receiving, as well as being torn away from their natural local cultural heritages by exposing them to everyone else's in the entire world. We're also talking about the whole nanny state and why these types of activities and practices are being perpetrated upon our children. We have learned that this is in existence not only here in the United States, but also over in the UK, where they are giving away laptops to students and welfare recipients in multiple countries. They're giving away cell phones to welfare recipients in multiple countries. Instead of giving them opportunities for jobs, instead of giving them food, instead of giving them actual things that will help improve their lives, they're giving them elements and tools that will control their information, that will control their education, and will allow them to be traceable by a worldwide system because of the chips that are involved in all of these different types of documents, as well as letting them spy on their children. We want to know what you think and feel about that. Please email us, please call us, please contact us, because we want to be able to share this information with the world. Now, David, I don't know how much time you how much time you spend watching any of what is called mainstream media, but I keep a semi-close eye on it, and I have personally noticed...
Tomorrow I'll watch the show Lost and V, and that's about all I get in for the week.
Wow. Well, we'll get back to V here in a couple moments. I'm sure Maggot's got some things he can open your mind up about. The reason I ask is, have you seen these commercials that are out there about making sure that people have cell phone access, making sure that all of our students have access to the Internet, making sure that children in third world nations have access to computers and thus with the Internet system? Are you familiar with any of this stuff going on out there?
No, I haven't seen any of those commercials.
Yeah.
I do know they have a lot of tracking phones that you can give your kids, so you
Sure.
know where they're at. To be honest, I actually looked into those because, I have no idea where my kids are right now. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, to be fair, I don't know where my parents are right now either.
yeah, well,
Well, and I don't know where my nieces and nephews are right now. I barely know where my dog is right now. And I wonder if perhaps the use of those types of systems that even allow parents to spy on their children isn't symptomatic of helping foster the fear element that allows us to continually hand over our liberties for security.
yeah, that's one of the reasons why I didn't do it, because if I can track them, then so can somebody else.
Right, and I think that gets lost far too often. Maggot, over there in the UK, do you guys have commercials or anything about parents being able to track their kids' movements with their cell phones?
Well, I've seen those where they can track the kids if you
Yeah.
get a certain family plan.
Sure.
Hello.
I'm sorry, Maggot, didn't mean to suddenly interrupt whatever it was you were doing there.
I had to go. So the door was knocking. Somebody's knocking on the door.
Was
They
it
both.
the sex
Knocking
tape?
on the door.
Yeah, hey, what's that?
They both have the iPhone and that mobile view service. In a moment, I'll tell you about that.
Okay. Was it your local census taker at the door there, Maggot?
My local what?
Census taker?
Local. Oh no, it was my mum.
Oh. Well, that's nice that she at least stops by.
She's sort of landlady at the property as well.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So
Well,
just talking house.
Landlady and mom at the same time.
Yeah.
we're continuing our conversation on the nanny state and everything else, and David and I were talking about the cell phone plans that are available here in the U.S., in which if you have your whole family signed up on a plan, you can actually track where your child is based upon their cell phone from an application that you can use on yours. For example, they do a series of commercials in which a mother is out shopping at this big, huge mall, and their preteen or a pseudo-teenage daughter wants to go off with her friends and go shopping and hang out for a while, and she lets her go, and the whole commercial is structured around the idea that your daughter is shopping by herself for the first time. Which cell phone provider are you going to use so that you can make sure that she's always safe? And this whole idea that the parent then has the ability to constantly pull up and track their child's movement throughout the entire mall, no matter where they are, so that they can, make sure that they're safe, not keep tabs on them and, completely debilitate them from being rational human beings.
Choose Verizon. They never stop charging.
Really?
Stop charging. It's a great
I'll just be right back in 5 minutes. Just need to check. So.
Fair enough.
I taught my kids, well, if ever they suspected I was capable of tracking them, they would have just lost them.
You're still here. What are you looking
Okay.
for?
Yeah, if ever they suspected I was tracking them, they'd just shut their phones off. So.
Well, but technically speaking, you should still be able to track them through the SIM card that's in the phone or the satellite uplink element that's in the phone. So
Yeah,
I'll
maybe.
say right now, I'm very proud of my parents. They finally found the push thing, It also means I don't know where they are, but I don't use it to track people. I just thought it was funny to go look real quick. But they finally, that's the only way to save battery power on an iPhone. I'm really proud that they actually found it, because I keep saying, turn the push on. So cool. But no, so I can't do my trick.
Oh.
It's actually quite good. I can usually hit my mother's iPhone by remote.
Right.
I see the screen. It does VNC.
So, but the whole ability of being able to track your child whenever they're moving, no matter where they're going, no matter what they're doing, just seems to me anathematic to the whole process of allowing child freedom, isn't it?
Emblematic.
What did I say?
Anthematic? There's no word. But this never worked out for my parents. They had dreams of these things. But like, even when I was a kid, the first time we got the TV that you could lock the channels out, I locked all the sports channels off the cable. I've always been in charge of that kind of stuff. I mean, they could never figure out how it works. I hate sports, man. I can't take it. The minute I see all the green crap and people cheering, I reach to lock things off.
Only if I can play. I don't like watching other people play. It's annoying.
Like bread and circus. They're destroying our culture. I mean, how come we can't have a concert? Where's the Who? I mean, we have to watch the stupid sports on every freaking holiday.
Well, once again,
it hit you today or what?
Just that's all right. We'll forgive you for that. That's okay. Well, but
no, it happens like every holiday, and then we have a couple of brainwashed relatives. Oh, they've got to see the Four. Kill yourself. I mean, and then but the sign of the true brainwashing is when they start talking about how great the coach is and what a great guy he is, and he's really working hard this year. And the minute that rationale starts showing up in the conversation, they're radically brainwashed to the point where they have no original thought and they're like robotic. It's bizarre. Like, I noticed that when that feature appears, then I gotta go. I mean, they're like our team this year and our coach. Like, these are millionaires who have no allegiance to your city, and they're there to distract you from real issues.
Well, but once again, I think I tried to mention this.
And then I finally saw this HD business, because I don't even do that. And this now, when you see the sports, not only do they have the thing about the line that they can draw, I knew about that, but they can pick up the players and move them around. So now, if you see any kind of terrorist thing, like now all the 9/11 footage falls apart, and it's worth examining. Don't call it by its name. There's a name they call it to dismiss it, but you can't trust anything that you now see on TV. If they can pick the players up and move them around, and they can do all the tricks that I just recently saw with sports, there is no more real TV. It's all live. There's no possibility it's tricks.
I know in some of the political campaigns, they changed the billboards in the background because they didn't want to advertise Coke or whatever.
And all this protest stuff, number one, you cannot bring a 9/11 as an inside job thing to the Tea Party, because that's been infiltrated by the Council for National Policy, of which, for you NWO fans, Dr. Stan is a member, and Jack McLand. It's not just Pat Buchanan and people like that. We're not talking CFR. We're talking CNP. Okay. When you see the list of who the membership is, that will tidy up any loose ends you had about people in the media.
If I may, for just one quick second there, too, I do want to interject this, because this just made me strict up this week.
They will take your sign out, or they'll show. It could be loaded with people who are doing 9/11 Truth or something, and they're trying to stop it, but they will not show that on camera, no matter what they have to do.
Well, but again, if I can just introduce this real quick and add it to the conversation, not to detract from it or anything else. Listening to one of the Sunday morning political talk shows on regular media this weekend to understand what the mass majority of people are listening to, they were talking about the anti-war protest and the anti-tax protest and everything else, and this individual who was on one of these shows made this comment about, well, you know, all of those people that were protesting that, they were all on dope. They were all on pot anyway. Oh, did I just say that on TV? Ha 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 ha.
Well, they always want to paint us as lefties somehow. I don't know anybody who's a liberal in this movement. They're all conservatives who are have been pushed out of the Republican Party because it's been hijacked by evangelicals and neocons who lead them. But the thing is, there's like Michael Moore has no presence in the anti-NW. He's not even an active figure in any kind of political movement. But they hold him up like a marionette, as if he's valid and doing something. And he's on the left. There is no left that protests, and it's a conservative movement, this anti-New World Order. But they can't really, like, they get libs that don't know anything about the movement to talk as if they're members of it, because they couldn't put like a Tex Mars on TV. They couldn't put anyone who's legitimate, because you might go to their website and look up what they're saying and agree with them. They can't have that. So it's always actors on TV or people that have never really heard of the movement. Like, even when Stern wanted to put people on, they had to give him Paula Gloria, who's freaking New Age. She's not part of any movement that we're part of. You know, the worst possible example. It wasn't his fault. Go ahead. I gotta take a nap.
You don't need to take a nap.
I don't know what's wrong with me today.
Well, I think you're on a roll. I think you need to go ahead and continue on with that vein of thought. I think our listeners out there want to know how they're actually being deceived, and if they're paying attention to this stuff.
Turn the TV off and download all the stuff that you want to watch. Get a DivX DVD player and download everything. And I would try to get Usenet News versus BitTorrent. I mean, BitTorrent you have to give back, and they won't let us upload. So what's the point? But definitely, I mean, you can't believe anything that's on the television now. I only see it like at my parents' house, briefly. Like we get free cable in this building. I don't have it hooked up. It's the level of brainwashing and lying is 100%. It's unbelievable. The real scary one now for me to watch was the McLaughlin report, which I used to watch with my father a long time ago. I used to watch McNeil Air, but to see it now, every member is a member of the CFR, and they're all on the same side, and it must take them all week to come up with these bizarre, contrived things that they would argue about. They all want the one thing, the world government. That's what the CFR does. So there's no possibility of them disagreeing with each other. So they come up with these things that are really out there to talk about that have no meaning at all. I mean, it just turn the TV off and download stuff. I don't know. Somebody else have it? I'm not well. I should be on the air.
Nonsense. You should always be on the air. It's important for viewers and listeners and invalids and laid-up people and crazy individuals to get a dose of wisdom every once in a while. You should always be on the air. I can say that because... say that again?
I gotta find more music to put on behind us.
Well, you could just play any of that Byzantine music that you had going on this weekend.
No, Stooges.
There you go. That sounds fantastic.
I love Iggy Pop.
Is there any chance we could get Iggy Pop on the radio with us?
No.
Maybe. Probably not.
Try to book him. See if you can get a hold.
I'll work on that. Actually, you know what? I think Maggot would be better for that. You're both from the same country. You must know each other well.
He lives in America. He's always lived in America. He's from Detroit. James Osterberg is from Detroit. He's not English. Iggy Pop? No. David Bowie is from England. And he was David Jones. He had to change his name because of that really creepy, embarrassing Davy Jones.
I've got nothing but static coming out of you at the moment, so I hope our listeners are being able to hear the level of idiocy that I've sunk to just for ratings. I'm still getting static. Good. Right?
I was hearing his voice before, but now I hear static from him.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting right now. Hopefully the broadcast broadcast is coming across okay. Maggot, are you there?
Well, it's just me. You get to interview me then.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, David, why don't you tell us all about your appreciation of blues music, but only blues music written between 1951 and 1951 and a half.
That'd be Willie Dixon. Chess Records. And they were being exploited by Leonard Chess and the Chess Brothers. And Son House actually went back to the plantations in the South. And that's where Alan Lomax found him and convinced him to go back and start recording again. I mean, he had given up on blues. And we're talking 1951, right? I'm dead on.
I can't believe somebody actually found that reference.
100%. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
You want to roll the dice again, see if I can do it? No, don't do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the top of the hour. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You are currently listening to American Freeman on the Freeman Radio Network.
Yeah, they're going to hear us and wish slavery on us.
Pardon?
American Freeman. Yeah.
What did I say?
No, I'm saying.
Hello!
They're going to hear this show and wish slavery on us.
That's possible. Maggot, I don't remember anyone asking
what they
to say
want.
hello in this hour.
They just sabble in the air, man. What
I was saying hello.
show is this, man? I mean, music in the background. What kind of freaking crap is this? I'm going to listen to Jones, man. That's what they're saying right now.
It's the deal. Jones is the real deal.
We're actually on opposite Jones. So. You can listen to us as a protest. No Jones, right?
Are we? We can't be on opposite Jones, can we?
He goes on it's Central Time. He goes on I think noon Eastern Time, but 1 o'clock Central.
No,
You say nobody said hello this hour. That's disgraceful.
No,
So he's on right now.
if it's 1 o'clock Central, it's 2 o'clock Eastern.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I don't know. I never listened
We'll
to
get
Jones
it called
live,
in.
and now I don't listen to
But
Jones
that's
at all.
okay because Jones is married to a Jew and is completely set up and ready to advocate while not advocating for everything. Jones has basically become the Chris Matthews of the independent airwaves.
But can you imagine? He'll raffle off tickets to his son's bar mitzvah. Little Einstein Jones.
Einstein Jones is that
Einstein Jones? Yeah, named after Saint Einstein, the idiot who, when people wanted to debate him, he would just say that they're anti-Semitic, because that's proper debate skills right there.
Yeah.
Sure.
He was an idiot who was just appointed. He was there to censor Tesla's material so that you couldn't build weird things in the basement. I mean, the man was, he's not the genius that we think he is. He's a radical Zionist. He's Saint Einstein.
You mean Albert Einstein?
Yeah, Christopher John Bjerknes wrote this great book about him called Saint Einstein.
Go on.
The more you find out about him, the more sick you get.
Curiosity piqued, even if you don't have the listeners' curiosity piqued. My curiosity is piqued. I'm unfamiliar with this concept because I've always been under the belief, perhaps delusion, that Einstein was
Smart?
actually a semi-intelligent individual who was
The most brainy man of all time.
No, the things that he was known for have been proven false. They gave him the Nobel Prize for a theory. Not that the Nobel Prize is actually a meritorious thing; it's an appointment. But,
they gave Barack Obama a Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, after he could have only been nominated less than 2 weeks after he took the mantle of the mantle. Because I don't want to hear anything right now.
I remember that in the news. He was as surprised that he got it as everybody else was.
Oh, he wasn't surprised. Everything's stage managed. His puppeteer Zbigniew Brzezinski told him, "Well, we're going to be giving you the Nobel Prize." Nobel is NWO. Illuminati there. I mean, it's not dynamite. It's the dynamite monopoly. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. I mean, who better to set up a prize for peace than the individual who created a better way to blow things up? Right. Come on.
Yeah, you got the Nobel Peace Prize for bombing the moon not once but twice.
But I mean, Einstein, you're not supposed to be able to get it for a theory. You have to get it for something real. And
yeah.
So he gave it to him for theory. invalidated.
I'm surprised
the
Al
prize.
Gore hasn't been given the prize. Has he got a Nobel Prize yet for his amazing
He
theory?
does. He does. He
Yeah.
has an Oscar as well. But people are talking about forcing him to give those things back.
Well, but you see, that's the only way they could get him to give up the contesting the presidency in 2000.
Well, no, he's financially involved in 9/11. The first, I really don't believe planes hit the building, but the first plane that hit the building, they blew up a plane-shaped hole right there at Cantor Fitzgerald CO2E. He and Maurice Strong, who has to hide out in China because he'd be extradited anywhere else, own the Chicago Climate Exchange to trade carbon credits and enslave the masses. And so their only competition was Cantor Fitzgerald CO2E, which was where the first explosion was in the World Trade Center. It was where the first plane supposedly hit. So all those people died. So there is no CO2E. But he's financially involved. I mean, like Osama. Imagine Osama bin Laden saying, "Make sure you hit right where the CO2E is. We want Al Gore to make more money." I mean, no. I mean, like, really. Like they give a damn about carbon credits.
Right.
I mean, it's such a phony thing in the first place.
Wasn't the construction company that built the World Trade Center and deconstructed it, wasn't it called something like Bush-Laden Construction or something?
Bin Laden construction. He has a really large family. They built most of the shrine of Mecca and all that in Medina. That was all constructed way later after. I mean, in modern times it was constructed, and it was built by the Bin Laden construction company. They suppose they do really good work. I mean, you got to realize this guy only ever did what the United States told him his entire life. I mean, tell me how he's an enemy of the U.S.
I know, they play golf together, Bin Laden and Bush. I mean, it's like, if you're doing that, it's like almost the same as having sex together, like in those sort of circles.
The Saudi Prince Bandar, they hold hands when they walk. Bush Jr. and Prince Bandar, they call him Bandar Bush.
Well,
but they hold hands.
Well, the CIA.
Now we're talking about the father.
Well, but the CIA having having had an operative that spoke with and met with Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, they visited
2 weeks before 9/11, within the month before 9/11, and yet, if he's supposed to be one of America's most wanted enemies, why wasn't he taken into custody then, considering he was in an American hospital at the time?
No, they were saying goodbye to one of their prized agents. He was dying of kidney failure there in a Dubai hospital. He probably did die right then. They were just saying goodbye to him. He always did everything they ever wanted.
Sure, of course.
I mean, it's not like he's working for the other side. I mean, his code name was Tim Osman.
Yep.
And I mean, basically, he hopped up the Mujahideen to fight they had this reverse proxy war in Afghanistan. See, Vietnam, like, we could have taken over Vietnam in about 15 minutes.
Sure.
But the Russians were feeding the Vietnamese equipment and arms and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did the exact same thing to the Russians by hopping up the Mujahideen and giving them weapons and stuff, so that the Russians lost fantastic numbers there in Afghanistan. You could take over Afghanistan in about 2 weeks. I mean, it's a couple of days, really. I mean,
if you really wanted to, sure.
And what Afghanistan looks like before you bomb it and after you bomb it looks the same. You know.
Yep.
Yeah. And all we're there for now is to make sure that the poppies are grown, because the British East India Company, who's always sold that stuff, you know, they need their profit, because the Taliban was shutting it down. The Taliban was
they were shutting down the whole heroin trade.
Right. So the U.S., who always goes in on the wrong side, had to make sure that, you know, British East India Company was protected, and the CIA that they are now. I mean, that's a bumper crop. They have to, you know, entrap celebrities and get the general public hooked on heroin. I mean, how are they supposed to do that if the Taliban shuts it down? You know what I'm saying? And they make a lot of money for that to fund their black projects, so they need that, right? I mean, it's the American way, right?
Right. Are you guys familiar with Michael Rupert?
He blew his whole ride by. He knew about the CIA and all that, and the drug trade and whatever. He was a cop who was on. Unfortunately, he was the guy supposed to be busting people for drugs, although he found out it was the CIA selling the drugs. But then he ties everything to peak oil. The man's not a geologist.
No, I know. I understand.
He had to hide out in South America for a while. His stuff about that topic is good. It's just he tied it to peak oil. It's idiocy.
Right. Well, and while I'm not mentioning anything about that, his implications as to the purpose and support behind the drug elements of the quote-unquote necessity of 9/11 were so incredibly dead on.
Yeah. His stuff was good for a while, and it's kind of faded out.
Sure. But it's...
Who can we call? Who's up?
I have no idea. You're the producer of the... You're the responsible one.
I'm the responsible one.
You're the producer. You're the one who's supposed to know who's up and who's around and who we can contact with. We'd always love to hear from you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're out there listening and you're on Skype, you can always reach us at Keep Truth Free on Skype. We want to hear from you. You can follow our blog. You can chat on the forums, and you can always find out more information about us, who we are, and what we're doing by going to worldfreemansociety.org. We also encourage you to check out thinkfree.ca. You'll find links to videos. You'll find links to online chat rooms, to forums, to blogs, to information, to local chapters, to how you can be involved, to who can answer your questions, to how to reclaim your sovereignty in a world that is designed to keep you a slave. We want to hear from you. We want to find out what you're thinking. We want you to be part of this conversation. Get in touch with us either through that site or on Skype at any time. We want to know how we can help you out. And we want to be able to encourage as many of you as possible to be free in the fullest sense of the word.
No, it's responsible, sir.
Well, freedom in its fullest sense, I believe, implies responsibility.
Trick question. Trick answer.
I appreciate our one of our co-hosts who's with us every Monday through Friday from 1 to 4, the president of the Americas chapter of the World Freeman Society, Evstratios Konstantin.
What an honor.
We're glad to have him with us. We appreciate his sarcasm and his constant testing, because without it, we'd never know how to be able to stand up to other people and actually be in charge of our own selves. We are fortunate enough to be joined today, as always, by our pond-hopping, internet Skyping friend, Maggot, our other co-host, who is providing us with a UK identity of how this affects the worldwide stage. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We also have with us one of our fellow freemen on the land, David Ray.
Yeah, I'm back.
He joins us from here in the United States and is responsible for helping to make sure that we have a presence on the World Wide Web that you can download and listen to us. We definitely want to make
put it up on TalkShoe.
Yep, we do have a presence on TalkShoe. Lenny, why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of our show there?
Well, our organization is World Freeman Society, so it's WFS Podcast. So you go to tinyurl.com/WFS Podcast, and it'll take you to our TalkShoe page.
And you can find back episodes of our show there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the entire week. We've been on 1 week so far.
Which is
this is our second week, beginning second.
Yep, this is the beginning of our second week, so we're glad to have you with us. We're fortunate that you are, and we want to hear from you. We're talking today about the nanny state. We're talking about the world order. We're talking today about how to maintain reclamation of your sense of self and your identity and your human beingness and sovereignty inside this ever-growing and fast controlling element.
I found one news article that's, well, sort of relevant. It's mildly interesting. It's in a telegraph.co.uk. It's 15th of April. Excessive cleanliness to blame for allergy rise. Excessive cleanliness in modern homes has led to a steep rise in allergies, a new report indicated. It sounds kind of quite bizarre. Should I carry on?
Go ahead.
See, the conditions have become increasingly widespread in developed countries, with hay fever, eczema, hives, and asthma are on the rise. I'm quoting directly, that's a bit bad English on that. The study by Guy Delesbeth, a professor at the University of Montreal Faculty of Medicine, linked the trend to the sterile environment created by the cleaning habits of today. Allergies can be caused by family history, air pollution, processed foods, stress and smoking, but Prof. Delesbeth said a lack of bacteria in the world around us may be the biggest factor. This is a quote. There is an inverse relationship between the level of hygiene and the incidence of allergies and autoimmune diseases, says Professor Delesbeth, who is also director of the Laboratory for Allergy Research at the University of Montreal. The more sterile the environment a child lives in, the higher the risk he or she will develop allergies or an immune problem in their lifetime. It's got some quote statistics. In 1980, 10% of the Western population suffered from allergies. Today, it's 30%. In 2010, 1 out of 10 children is said to be asthmatic, and the mortality rate resulting from this affliction increased 28% between 1980 and 1994. And then he goes on to say it's the gravity of the cases has increased as well. Okay.
What we're ultimately saying is that for thousands of years of human civilization, asthma and allergies were never anything that people spent gross amounts of time paying attention to, and then all of a sudden between 1980 and 1994 or 1980 whatever in 2000 it jumped by massive
20%,
massive amounts of percentages, 20%, 12%. All of a sudden, we have this explosion of asthma and allergy symptoms.
Yeah, and it's the article's saying it's all down to the fact they're too clean now, too hygienic. He's saying that in the past we didn't suffer from these problems because we have our own natural bacteriological defences against it. Let's see. I'll carry on. It's not just the prevalence, but the gravity of the cases, says Professor Delesbeth. Regions in which sanitary conditions have remained stable have also maintained a constant level of allergies and inflammatory diseases. That's quite a difficult one to figure out what he's talking about. But I mean, it's like where they haven't actually changed the sanitary conditions, it means they've kept the same amount of allergies and it's remained constant. It hasn't increased or decreased. Allergies and other autoimmune diseases such as type 1 diabetes and multiple sclerosis are the result of our immune system turning against us. The bacteria in our digestive system are essential to digestion and also serve to educate our immune system. They teach it how to react to strange substances. This remains a key in the development of a child's immune system. Although hygiene does reduce our exposure to harmful bacteria, it also limits our exposure to beneficial microorganisms. This is like the meat of the article, really. As a result, the bacterial flora of our digestive system isn't as rich and diversified as it used to be. The professor said consuming probiotics, food like yogurt that can contain a mixture of beneficial organisms, can help to combat the problem by artificially introducing bacteria into the gut. I think that's gut. I think it's a spelling mistake on that. Introducing bacteria into the gut, I think it's saying. Sure. Consuming probiotics during pregnancy could help reduce allergies in the child. They are not a miracle remedy, yet they are one of the many elements that improve our diet and our health. So yeah, that was the end of the article. It's quite strange. Yeah, it's basically people being too excessively cleanliness. People using excessive cleanliness is to their own deficiency. Because obviously in medieval times, they wouldn't have baths for months or weeks, wouldn't wash their hair for weeks, and lived in like really squalid conditions, what we consider. But they were possibly healthier. I'm thinking that they're trying to imply than some of the people nowadays. They got better immunity anyway to illnesses, better resistance, because they have all this bacteria around them. Because their immune system is fighting all the time, it keeps it healthy.
Sure. Well, I can cite case example in my own existence. Some family members of mine keep and have kept from the moment that they were married an extremely sterile house, constantly using antibacterial soaps, constantly using disinfectants all over the house, kept it spotless, kept it immaculate, kept it perfectly clean. The pacifier fell out of the baby's mouth. It was automatically sterilized before put back in. It's just this overwhelming sense of control of environment.
Yeah.
And the kids, both children, developed massive allergy symptoms, asthmatic symptoms. One of them had to be on breathing treatments for a number of years, and it was purely limited to the level of sterility that they had kept in the environment of these children growing up. And I think back to my growing up experience. From the time that I was old enough to be able to walk, I was thrown outside and let alone to eat dirt and get filthy and
yeah, live on worms.
Wow. Make mud pies and just live, because if you got sick, you got sick. But it's frightening that we have to go through an entire stage of denying our children the ability to be healthy to realize that we screwed up by denying them the ability to be healthy.
Well, that's it, yeah.
But I think it's a control element. It's like telling people that cholesterol is bad for you, then it's good for you, then it's bad for you. Salt is good for you, then it's bad for you, then it's good for you, but it's bad for you, but it's only good for you in certain kinds. And I think so much of it is done as an element of keeping people confused, that they can never know the truth unless it comes across as an official line, so they constantly are trained to believe the official line.
Yeah. Because I mean, in older times, obviously, say before the 1960s, diets hadn't really caught on. People didn't really know what they were about, and according to a lot of reports and stuff, there were people just generally more healthy, and they had more of an outdoors lifestyle as well. So it's possibly the diet's not contributing to it either, and also the dieting mentality. When you're always worried about what you're going to eat, that is going to make you open to some illnesses in order to justify being worried about it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the you create the problem, you offer the solution, and you gain control.
Yeah, and you're using fear as a control mechanism. So those evil bacteria that you can't even see. And having yogurt all the time I don't actually have a yogurt. I avoid dairy milk. I avoid milk anyway. I prefer I prefer soya if I have to drink anything, and sunflower, margarine, and all that. I prefer that to the butter-based products. But I'm not particularly fussed. I'll eat pretty much anything.
Sure.
Processed or non-processed.
What I eat.
What was that, David?
Margarine's what I avoid, and butter's what I eat, because margarine's basically they've taken a vegetable oil and then they've processed it to the point where it becomes this goop. Whereas,
I haven't taken any sort of buttery stuff in quite a while, and I haven't really noticed any difference. Any negative difference in how I feel at all. This is something I don't really need.
You need some fat in your diet in order to absorb some of your vitamins. Like vitamin E is only fat soluble. You can get fats from vegetables and things like that, but they're it's. I forget what it is. What was it? They were pointing out in an article that I was reading that vitamin K. You can basically only get it from eating other animals because it's produced by a bacteria that's in the gut.
And that's a really essential one. I've heard something about vitamin K.
Yeah, they do tell us a bunch of weird stuff. I noticed that when I started using sea salt, I lost a lot of craving for salty products.
I eat sea salt. I don't really touch table salt at the moment. It just tastes nicer. It's got a stronger taste to it. Table salt is a bit like dust after you've had sea salt for a while. And you don't need to use so much sea salt as you do with table salt. It's too fine for a start. You just got to pour on loads.
Well,
but getting kind of back to the point here, the over-sterilization of things and the concentration of people's identities into believing, getting them to accept certain things as being absolute seems to be just another element of overprotection, over-control over a situation.
Yeah.
Like we've been talking about all show long, the idea of having to constantly be on top of, having to constantly limit and control and basically try to preserve a sense of childlike imposition over every developmental aspect of somebody's existence. It starts as...
you gotta be able to do it yourself is what it boils down to.
Well, sure.
That's right, yeah.
And,
you might buy a product from somebody else, but it should be a product that you could make yourself if you wanted to.
Well, sure, but it also has to be something that doesn't limit your exposure to... You have to be able to lose the sense of being innocent, because innocent, I think, in the concept of most people's human understanding, the idea of being always childlike comes across in much the same way as the idea of a utopia. It's an impossible thing, and you can't limit existence that way. In the instant that you do, you have to allow somebody else to have control over the things that you don't want to have to deal with. You can't always... You have to, at some point, take the responsibility for your own decisions and your own actions. Whether that's eating dairy or not eating dairy, whether that's allowing somebody else to be the administrator of your affairs or not letting them, whether that's letting your children be subject to taking a laptop home that your principal and vice principal can tap into and spy on your child, or standing up against that. Letting yourself accept the limits of poverty and the limits of information and education that have been imposed upon you, or realizing that you're completely free whether you're trapped into a box or not. It all boils down to taking the responsibility for the self, taking the responsibility for your own actions, and breaking out of being a child. Making your own decisions and accepting the consequences that are out of them. Not having somebody tell you what the consequences are going to be if you make that decision.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Am I right?
Right.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, anybody who tries to control your environment, I think, at the end of the day, is going to end up resulting in a weaker you. So you've really got to be able to control your own environment, and that includes like what you eat, as as long as everything else, really. So, I mean, when you start relying on other people to control your environment for you, you're going to end up being weaker as a result of it, because you're not doing things for yourself, you're doing it to follow along a template or a plan laid by somebody else. And these people all live in library houses anyway, they all live in like an idealistic, plastic world of like permanent childhood, and they want everybody to be like that because they want them not to talk back, and they want them not to be able to think for themselves, so they can just like receive commands forever, you know, just obey without questioning. But it's all part of that. If you've got children who are scared to go outside because of the deadly bacterias, and they might get stung by a wasp or get stinging nettles, we have them over here, or they might get under their fingernails.
What was that?
My poor kids went through that. My wife and I were so afraid to let them go out because we were afraid that somebody's going to kidnap them or whatever, and so they only went out when we could watch them, so they didn't go out very often.
Yeah.
For the first few years.
Statistically, do you know how many children are kidnapped a year in the United States?
Probably not many, huh?
Less than 1/2%. And of that 1/2%, more than half of them have been kidnapped by a relative.
So they probably consider that I kidnapped my kids when I brought them out to Missouri.
Yeah. Sure, exactly. But, well, I don't know for sure, but that would be a case of one of the ones that might be recorded as a kidnapping that doesn't actually exist as a kidnapping. Now, the reason behind this is because the more they hype that fear into you, the more, once again, you're willing to allow control elements to be put in place. Well, of course, my kids need cell phones that allow me to track them with an application so I can always see where they are, because that puts you in control over a situation, but that also makes you more subsequently willing to accept that level of control over you in the name of protection. You see how this works in both a top-down and a bottom-up, or from a your sense top-down and your sense security element coordination, where they want you to feel like they're empowering you, but while at the same time they're stealing away from you your ability to have any power?
Yeah, because it's all done to make you stronger and better and sort of like Superman-ish, but it always has the wrong effect. They always want you to live like this sort of like glamorized existence, where you just like raise your hand and the doors open, and your food's prepared automatically for you just by clicking your fingers. But that's the 60s science fiction scenario, really. But that never works out in reality, because the people who have everything controlled for them in their environments always end up being weak and decadent and lazy.
Sure.
So you tell them they want the carrot, and you tie the carrot to a stick and to the top of their head, and they follow the carrot wherever you want them to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, anyone remember H.G.'s The Time Machine?
Mm-hmm.
And H.G. Wells was himself a...
Morlocks and the...
Eloy.
At the end of the final extent of civilization, the Morlocks.
Eloy. It was Eloy. It was Eloy.
Huh?
As in Elohim with the HM taken off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. But there was more prophetic than you know, but that's basically what it boils down to, are the ones that control and the ones that are controlled. And at the opposite ends of the extreme, all they do is wind up controlling each other in different fashions. They both have to feast and feed off of each other in different ways.
Yeah, because the point with the time machine is the future he saw was basically everyone on the surface of the planet was fae or gay or whatever, like fairies. Mm-hmm. And they lived this totally, the old meaning of the word of gay just meant innocent and kind of like stupid,
sure, mm-hmm.
naive.
Right.
They had this, and fae means the same, basically. It's what it's rhyming with. So they had this totally fae existence where the food was handed to them on plates. They never questioned where it came from. They just sort of like partied and waltzed around. They probably had like free booze all the time as well, and never questioned anything. And once in a while, one of them would go missing, and they never really questioned it. And underneath was the control factor, which was the Morlocks, which just wanted them for food and possibly work and maybe sex.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, the Eloi had become so weak.
Mm-hmm.
The Eloi had become so weak because they were so decadent. They're all stringy and scrawny, whereas the Morlocks were strong and stocky, and they were all shifting boulders and doing all this heavy work. You're basically acting like demons in hell. Sort of the analogy that I saw in it. And so they could just drag off these Eloi, and the Eloi were too weak to do anything against it, and so they were like, "Oh, that's nasty," and just sort of like blank it out, really, get intoxicated, carry on with the intoxication.
Which is exactly what goes on in our societies, our modern levels of societies right now, in which, war is something that happens over there, and evil is something that happens in other countries, and bad people exist, and just, they're bad people and need to be punished, and it's just giving me my television and my toaster and my steel-belted radios, and I promise I won't say anything.
Yeah. Because, if there is something bad, if your neighbours go missing overnight, then, that can be bad, but, there'll be new neighbours around soon, and, besides, there's really good series on TV,
Right, exactly. Don't worry about it. There'll be something on TV in a couple of minutes, and we'll forget all about them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go and order a dial-out pizza or something.
Yep,
Just forget about it. Get really drunk.
Yep. Pizza, we'll crack a 12-pack of beer, and we'll all be fine.
Yeah.
Nothing for you to worry your pretty little heads about.
Yeah, there's always a big game. Game to watch.
Always something better to do than worry.
Yeah.
And that really seems to be the level of psychosis, is that you try to talk to people about any of this stuff, and their initial thing is to ignore you, and then ask if you happen to see the game that was on yesterday.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah,
That's exactly, no matter what season it is, there's some game on somewhere. Whether it's American football, real football, basketball, hockey, tennis, golf. It doesn't make any difference. People will make something up to talk about, or they'll talk about the weather. Because that's what people talk about when they have nothing else to say to each other, is they'll talk about the weather.
Yeah.
How's the weather?
It's weather and sports.
Mm-hmm. Because we lose the ability to communicate.
And celebrity gossip, which is always nice, because it's always gossip about other people.
Right. Well, and I think I shared this with Lenny. I don't know if I shared it with you, Maggot, and I know I haven't shared it with you, David. I learned years ago that there's 3 classes of intellect in the world. The most intelligent people discuss concepts and ideas. The average intelligent people discuss events and happenings. And the least intelligent people talk about other people.
Yeah, I got that one. That's a good one.
It's frightening when you start putting it into a practical application and you realize how incredibly true it is.
Yeah. And especially in today's society, because those people, the least intelligent people, are the ones who are spying the most on other people. That's how you gossip about other people.
I think that's been true in most societies, and what's most frightening is when you run into the people out there who you try to share this stuff with, or this idea with, and they look at you and go, well, that can't be true. We're so much smarter now.
Yeah,
we are, huh?
And you just have to laugh at them just a little bit. Really? What grand work of art did you create? How much smarter do you think you are right now?
Yeah. What are your personal accomplishments? If you can even spell that.
Oh, I have people who get angry with me when I use words that are more than 2 syllables long. Definitely. But and unfortunately, that comes back around to the idea is: should these people be allowed to vote in a system where it's mob rule? Should people who have almost no capacity for understanding what they're actually voting for be allowed to have a voice under mob rule?
Wait, now you're an elitist?
I'm not an elitist. I'm asking a question. I'm
represented at least.
I'm asking a question. I'm saying, do people who have no information because they have chosen not to have any information be allowed to make a decision that affects the entire populace? I'm asking for an opinion. I'm not advocating one side or the other at the moment.
I like other people. So I feel that if they express themselves, they should be heard, and that they shouldn't just be shuffled under because someone decides that they aren't informed. Maybe they are.
Maggot?
Yeah, the more people you have expressing an opinion, the better, as long as it's their own opinion, which is very unlikely. But the more different the bigger variety of opinions you have, the better. The more sort of like culture to society you have. It's when everybody says the same thing, you've got to start worrying about what way things are going. If everybody's just parroting what the screen's telling them, then you've got a society controlled by the screen.
Fair enough. David, what do you think?
Actually, I was busy trying to type something up. Sorry.
Well, fair enough. We appreciate your honesty. I think you validated the point. On a personal level, I believe that every person, whether they are informed or not, should have the right protected to be able to vocalize their opinion. My one element is that there should be a voice given to a non-vote. I think a vote of no confidence isn't reflected in the mob rule. Because when you break down the percentage of people that actually vote in most elections, they tend to be less than 50% of the entire voting populace that can vote in that election, which means that regardless of whether you accept mob rule or not, if the mob rules by not voting for any candidate that's up for election, shouldn't that mob rule stand just as much in effect as the idea that the mob rule that did vote?
Language your terms. Mob rule?
Mob rule.
That comes from hating other people. They're the mob, they're the unwashed. We, the elites, should rule.
No. Mob is the mass group of people that represent the plurality of the interest represented. It has nothing to do with the unwashed. Now, you may have connoted it that way, but I wasn't attempting to provide that connotation, and I apologize if I have created that in the minds of our listeners. How about mass rule?
I'm getting my Apple Dictionary out.
Democracy is often referred to as mob.
Does mass rule, majority rule work for you?
Anything but
okay, majority.
Terms.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I will use majority rule. And I would like majority to be applied retroactively to all of my
mob is a large group of people, especially one that is disorderly and intent on causing trouble or violence. A mob of protesters. And then the next definition is the mafia.
Well, so it's not only a disorganized group, but it's also the elite.
And then the third definition is even worse. It says the mob, the ordinary people, the age-old fear that the mob may organize to destroy the last vestiges of civilized life. It's a pejorative term from elites.
Except it's also...
it still works then. It's perfect, because that's how democracy works.
Democracy is the worst form. I mean, even Socrates told you it is the worst form of government ever.
Well, but that's what I'm asking. We exist in a sense...
Okay, mob rule only has one definition. It says, control of a political situation by those outside the conventional or lawful realm, typically involving violence and intimidation. This is the Oxford American Dictionary. I never knew we had an American Dictionary from Oxford.
You know,
that's what they gave you with Apple.
Fair enough. All right. Well, then, once again, allow me to rephrase myself into saying majority, not mob. If
what happened to the Byzantine system?
Well, you know what? We'll get to that tomorrow. I wanted to talk about that today, and there were a couple things that
leading
were
question.
No, actually, I wanted to get to that, but there were because there were a couple things raised today that made
go on.
No, that remind me of that, and we'll get to that tomorrow, folks. The difference between the Byzantine system and the Roman system, but. So majority rule then, not mob rule, majority rule. If the majority of the populace, more than 50%, don't even vote in an election, should it be considered that the majority of the people that do vote get to make the decision for all the people if you're only given two choices? For example, in an election for president, you're only really given, as far as most people are concerned who pay any attention at all, and the vast majority who don't pay any attention, you're only given the Republican and the Democratic choices in most states on the ballot to vote for president. If you're only presented with two choices, and the vast majority of people don't vote for president, does the winner of the majority of the votes cast automatically deserve the right to be president if they couldn't galvanize a majority of the populace? And doesn't that speak to the failing of majority rule system as it's constructed in this country?
Actually, the way we've constructed in this country is the majority does not get to vote for president. It's electoral college that does it. And they can actually ignore the mass vote.
And have.
Well, okay. I was unaware of that. I wasn't aware that they'd ever actually completely violated that vote.
Twice. Well, after Lincoln was assassinated, the first election after that, the South actually outvoted the North to have, can't remember the election right now off the top of my head, and that's when the North lifted and changed some of the reparations against the South for a couple of the states to have their electoral colleges change their votes from what the majority of their constituents had voted for to the Northern candidate. And I can't remember what the other time was, but it was sometime in the early 1900s. No, they've done it twice.
Theodore Roosevelt entered he was way too old to do this, and he entered the thing so that Woodrow Wilson could get elected. He made the reemergence of the Bull Moose Party, and it split the Republican vote so that Wilson could get in, so that Wilson could pass the Federal Reserve Act. Mm-hmm. He knew what he was doing. It was a trick.
Yep. Oh yeah, and they have hijacked elections for over a century plus now. Nice. But so that even with it being controlled by the Electoral College, the idea that even within a state, if less than 50% of the populace even that can vote turn out to vote, so you're working with only 50%, and you break that down to so that's 50% of each state has the ability to vote or has voted, and the plurality of that in each state determines how the Electoral College votes in the majority of the time. Not that they're bound by it, but in the majority of the time. Is it really fair to the American populace for all of those individuals who either choose not to vote or are kept from voting or are refused the right to vote to have to automatically consent to the elected officials in whatever district, municipality, city, county, state, or country that they're in if they did not consent or refuse the right to consent or not consent to the choice, and especially if they're only given the choices that are determined by people that they aren't a party to. I mean, if you think about it, the national candidates are chosen by delegates, and delegates are not representative of the actual population of a state. So the question still remains, how effective is the majority rule, and why do we even continue to believe that it is an effective policy? I love people, and I love the fact that I can vote, and I vote in every election that I can. But I'm convinced that my vote only really has power on a local level. Because of the way that the voting system is set up. And if that's the case, and especially if it's been shown that they've hijacked elections and controlled elections constantly, why do we delude ourselves into believing that elections haven't been hijacked? And what keeps us from taking the next step to declaring our own independence is declaring ourselves as sovereign, free men. Exactly.
I don't know. These people don't believe it. They don't believe there's a way out, and they don't believe that things could really be that bad, even though they know it is. You know.
Don't believe or don't want to believe.
They don't want to add it up. They know it's that bad, but they don't want to. You know what I mean? You often hear that thing about like. I wouldn't believe it even if it was true. I mean, people are convoluted, you know. There's a convoluted thinking out there, that, you know.
Sure.
And then we're also told that don't waste your vote, you know.
Well, somebody responds that the only thing you do is walk away.
And then there's the winner of the producers, Ron Paul. He actually did what the producers planned in the movie. You ever see Zero Mostel and all that? He had the money bombs and all that fundraising, and then dropped out of the race. He did not run for president, and when you do that, you get to keep the money.
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
Wasn't that what Perot did?
No, Perot was actually being threatened. I mean, when you get more than 20% or something like that, you get the CIA national security briefing every morning. And can you imagine what his national security briefing was every morning? We're going to kill your daughter, man. We're going to blow her head off. Here's pictures of other assassinations we've done. And that would be every morning for 15 minutes when the CIA would come and give him this briefing. And so after a while, it has to get to you, right? I mean, tell me they didn't threaten him and his daughter. Of course they did. And they're very convincing. I'm sure they had extra, non-Zapruder footage, from every possible angle, This is what we're going to do to her, Do you have a convertible we can put her in? Do we want to shoot her? I mean, they have every sick thing they can say. And of course he dropped out. Twice, actually.
Right.
We don't have legitimate elections.
Well,
and then we have the gall to go to other countries and then monitor their elections. I think like the Indonesian people should come here and monitor ours because they're so screwed up.
Well, but that's when they started claiming in Congress that we needed to go to Cuba and do UN nuclear inspections in Cuba, and Castro came out and said, "I'll be more than happy to let you guys in and do nuclear weapons inspections here, and I'll do it on the exact same day that the United States lets the UN inspect them for nuclear weapons." And that whole thing suddenly got dropped. Just dropped. Because we never want to admit, even as a nation, even as individuals within that nation, most persons never want to admit that their government has the capacity to act in the ways that other countries and governments are vilified for us, which once again is why I at least give the BBC credit for giving good international news coverage, whereas the U.S. just fails repeatedly to tell anyone anything.
Trick phrase there,
Right.
Persons, he dropped in there.
Yeah, oh, you like that?
I did.
Yeah, well, you notice I said individuals, too. I try to be as accurate, as legally accurate as I can with my definitions. Which brings me to the vocabulary distinction of the day, a new feature that I want to begin here. Freeman Radio Network. I want to, because as part of ensuring that you realize that you have been deceived and that there are bubbles constantly around you and that you have been fooled into thinking that you are part of a society that you are not, I want to bring you the differentiations of language. The word today that we are discussing is duty. And I checked out today for you folks in the Oxford Book of English Language, American edition, which I found rather amusing, the word duty, and contrasted it to the Black's Law duty. In the Oxford Dictionary, the common usage that most of us understand it, the definition was an understanding of a legal or moral compulsion to act. Which means that it's, in common usage, a duty is something that you believe is your cause for doing a certain action out of understanding it under a legal sense or understanding it under a moral sense. It does not coordinate your right to do so, but it does indicate to you that you feel that you have that you are compelled to do so. If, however, you look in Black's Law Dictionary, a duty is described simply as a legal compulsion to action with a coordinate right. That means, in a legal sense, anyone who claims that they are acting out of a legal duty is doing so and automatically has a coordinating right to do that. I raise this because you are going to find yourselves in court in which you are going to try to argue that it was your right to do a certain action. And the officer is going to claim that it was their duty to pull you over, their duty to ask you for your information, their duty to, because they feel that they are compelled legally to do so when they act as policy enforcement officers, and the instant they invoke it that as their duty, they have a right attached to it, and duty and right coordinated supersedes just simple right in a legal sense. I raise this to you all for one simple reason. It is for your own defense. I give you this information so that if you do find yourself in a court of law and you are arguing right versus duty and you are given the opportunity to speak first, never invoke a right. Invoke your duty to act, to preserve a right. And do it. And do it before prosecution has an attempt to say anything. Because it is important that you claim that you were doing your duty. For example, I was doing my duty to act, to be able to preserve the right of the freedom to travel for future generations. You have not only the legal obligation, but the coordinate.
You might say it's my duty to hold this can of beer in public, so I have to preserve everybody else's right to do the same.
I would encourage you to do that as well. You absolutely should be able to do that. Public intoxication is an ugly nastiness, but anyone who's accepting the responsibility of a free man accepts the responsibility that you have a responsibility not to be drunk in public to the point that you're being disorderly. So that's your vocab distinction, and that's the difference between how they define it and how you define it.
That should definitely be a regular segment of this show.
You're killing
the duty.
You know, it's not
Yeah,
fair.
the duty section.
You know how hard it is to be polite while you do that? We want to say duty real bad.
And
Duty!
Duty.
it's absolutely nearly impossible to keep a straight face today, and that's I have no problems if you want to giggle about that in the background and make it semi as loud as possible. I encourage that.
Duty.
I'm only slightly offended, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow we'll be joined by David Ray. Lenny and Maggot probably won't be with us as I climb through the computer and throttle both of them.
You're killing us, man.
Duty.
All this talk about duty, I don't know what to do. Our laws are duty.
At least don't do a duty. But that's been your vocabulary definition for the day, ladies and gentlemen. We are just about out of time today. I want to thank my co-hosts, Estratios and Maggot. Your insight and ridicule has been more than appreciated.
That's right.
It's always a pleasure to be put in my place by people who are smarter than I am. Very, very.
When they get here, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. David, we, as always, appreciate you being with us. For those of you who want to know, David is our BitTorrent guy. He's going to make sure that this show, as well as every show, is uploaded onto a variety of torrent sites. Check us out. We're also available at tinyurl/WFS podcast. Is that right?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Check us out on worldfreemansociety.org, Chapter America homepage. Follow our blog. Check out the forums. Learn more about us. We definitely want to hear from you. Email us. Contact us. You can reach us on Skype at Keep Truth Free. And we're online and available for a broadcast every single day. We want to hear from you. 1 to 4 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. This is your host, Don Perry, signing off. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, I'm your responsible party, Estratios Constantine Morades. Thanks a lot. We're done.
You are the reason I've been waiting all these